Thank you, Matrix. Yes, I am the goat of hosting the GBA stream. That is. What's up, GBA fans? We're back again, once again, for part 2 of the GBA Season 10 draft. This is the snake phase. We'll be going through the coaches' picks, which started yesterday immediately after the auction, and we'll be looking at what the coaches got. They're not yet done. They're pretty far along. We're still waiting on a few graphics, but hopefully by the time we get to the end of the stream, everything's done, everything's chosen, and we are ready to go. So I, of course, have my co-host with me once again today. How's it going, Vivid?
Hello. It is going very well. We had a really dope first half of the draft yesterday. We're going to be wrapping that up today, hoping to see how these teams fill out.
Yep.
I'm excited. Yeah.
So before we get started, there are a couple of things that I want to correct from yesterday. Yesterday I was in the sort of stress mode for the stream, and I mentioned a couple of assistant coaches a couple of times, almost as if they were the head coach of the team. I do want to preface that. We'll be hard focusing on the head coaches. Those are the coaches you guys will be following, the ones you'll be watching play the games for the most part in the season anyway. The assistant coach only really steps into play if the head coach can't. If you guys want to know who the head coaches are, of course, you can check out the description. All of the head coaches are there alongside their assistant coaches. And just for reiteration, we're going to go over them again today. And we'll look at the teams real quick as they ended up yesterday after the first 5 rounds, the auction rounds. So let's take a look at that graphic again. Pull it up here. So, of course, we have Frosted assistant coach Vepsis with the Copenhagen Sawsbucks, and then we have QtheCostaRican with Shayquaza, the Chicago Dragapults, GoldoaDragon, and Addison, assistant coach Addison with the New York Empoleon. Atlanta Victinis, I love this pair. It's JV and Gravy. JV Gravy. Love that. With the Atlanta Victinis. Maryland Torterrapins, that's Kelly, aka UnderTheRadar, and assistant coach, just looking that up here, Galadite74, Bullet Punch Club, that's Uzi, assistant coach MattyBrollic, Wolverhampton Weaviles, being just Weavile and Scorpion as the assistant coach, Playmore Esports, head coached by General Tar Heel and assistant coached by John Jr., next up, the Edmonton Coilers, head coached by Dell and assistant coach Owen, aka OGalbina. We have the Borussia Donphan, that's Lars and FranCTrode or FranCTrode. And then we have the San Francisco Arcaniners with Georgia's head coach and Haydunn as assistant coach, by the way. I, for some reason, had completely forgotten that Haydunn was back assistant coaching this season. And finally, our last team is the San Diego Snugglers, head coached by, of course, who is it? D.Rey. Yeah,
GrandMaster
right.
D.Rey, assistant coach Kurpie.
That's right. I just wanted you to say it because I know you're tight with them. So.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
I was leading you in, but I probably should have been a little bit more clear with that.
It's okay.
Another thing that we want to clarify from yesterday's stream is we spouted off a lot of nonsense about the Terra rules, and it seems like we weren't 100% understood on how the Terra rules work. So we were correct in saying that only one Terramon is possible if you select an S tier as your Terramon, but that doesn't mean you can take 2 A tiers as your Terramons. These Pokemon have a value amount attached to them, even though they were auctioned for. They have a set amount, just as with previous seasons, and the S tiers are 4,000, and your Terra budget is 4,000. So that's why you cannot select anything else if you choose an S tier. If you choose an A tier, it's 2,500, and as a result, you can't get another A tier, obviously, because that would put you over the 4,000. You can, however, get 2 B tiers. That would leave you with 2,000 each, maxing out your budget at 4,000. You can get an A tier alongside a C tier because C tiers are 1,500. And finally, the D tiers in the draft cost 1,000 to terrestrialize. So that's going to be a little bit of a clarification for you all. You guys will see how that plays out by the end as we see which teams select which Terramons. And I think we're going to have a graphic for that as well. So that'll be nice. All right. So as I said, the draft, of course, the snake draft portion did start yesterday. This isn't completely live, but like we said, the draft is still going on. But we already have a lot of the slides that came in from yesterday. So let's get this show on the road. We're going to start with the first overall pick of the snake portion. And it's actually going to go in the opposite order of what you see on your screen at the bottom. And we're going to be starting with D.Rey and the San Diego Snugglers. Coming in hot here with a Rotom Wash B tier pick. What do you think of this, Vid?
Rotom Wash. Solid Pokemon. Definitely, you know, like one of the kind of like OG bulky electric types. Doubling up on water types here. Maybe like a little weird. Like I maybe would have gone for a different Rotom type, but we'll have to see what they fill out the rest of the team with. Still, definitely a solid Pokemon. You know, can be kind of offensive, can do its like normal Will-O-Wisp pain splitty type thing and just like stall out Pokemon and be really hard to kill. It's good. It's good. I like the pick.
Very good, Mon. Getting your second ground resist / immunity here is pretty solid. Of course, as you mentioned, Palafin plus Rotom. Only shared weakness is Grass. They do have Arcanine and Iron Jugulus. They are going to have to get something to deal with electric types. Moving forward here. Another thing I want to mention about Terra types is that any mon you choose to terrestrialize has to be one of its stabs plus another chosen typing. So it's not like Annihilate can go Fairy plus Water here. It has to stay either Ghost or Fighting. So that's another thing to mention, of course. And yeah, so I don't hate the Rotom pick. I actually quite like it. I just don't know if they're going to be able to patch up the electric weakness. It's not so much a weakness, but it's something that they don't really resist right now. That's the problem with having so many monotypes, right? Is that you don't have that flexibility with extra resists that you get from dual typing. So they're gonna have to work on that. But I do like Rotom overall. Hopefully they can make it work. But yeah, moving on. Next up, of course, we do have the San Francisco Arcaniners coming in with the Regieleki, and you see that little star next to Regieleki's name. That's because Regieleki is not allowed to terrestrialize. Otherwise, it'd be banned, or at least an S tier. Definitely wouldn't be down here in the C tier. That would make absolutely no sense. Regieleki runs rampant with its Transistor ability. It's absolutely blistering speed, fastest Pokemon in the game. And of course, if you give it access to any stab type it wants, that makes it a little bit too threatening.
Especially if you give it that Terra Ice, you know, the like old Bolt Beam combo is still like actually just very good in Gen 9. I know a lot of people are not fans of Regieleki in draft because of how like one-dimensional it can be. I'm a huge fan of it. Not to the point where I think that like C tier is too low for it. I think that that's actually probably a proper placement for it. But just like getting the fastest Pokemon in the game, you get a lot of leeway with like what speeds you run with this thing. And it's not like teams can just ignore it. Like you have to bring something that either quad resists electric types or you have to bring an immunity every week against Regieleki. And most teams do end up picking up a ground type, so that is very doable. But it automatically like pigeonholes your opponent into building a certain way, I think, and I really appreciate Pokemon that do that. So I think this is a fantastic pickup. Also, just like their speed tiers went from like very mid and kind of like samey and slow to like pretty okay just with Eleki. So
yeah, George definitely improves the speed of the team here. However, it does add another ground weakness, so Gyarados is kind of carrying the ground resist right now. Don't love that. Amoonguss can eat some ground hits, but Eleki, obviously, if George is able to get another electric type alongside the Eleki, I feel like that'll do him a lot of good, because it'll force the same switch in to come in on both Mons. And like Eleki is one of the few Pokemon that I could see you getting another electric type alongside. Maybe one of the Rodum forms to be off the ground, so that you don't have the ground weakness.
I agree.
That could be something really good.
Rotom Mo would be a really solid pair, honestly. Just something that's like immune to ground and can also punch through it, or I guess Electrode. But then, anyways,
even Frost. Honestly, Frost is pretty good.
Actually, really solid point.
All right, moving on. We do have the Borussia Donphan with Volcanion. So this one's interesting. I'm not 100% sold on this pick personally. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it first, though.
I don't like Volcanion as a Pokemon. This is a Pokemon where I'm like, yeah, the C tier makes a ton of sense for this thing. It's just like a bulky water type it's like kind of trying to be like an offensive bulky water type that has all the weaknesses you don't want for a water type, right? Like a water type being weak to rock and ground, not fantastic. Like patching up its grass weakness is such a mid trade-off for those things. I mean, don't get me wrong, the dual stab of water and fire is great. This is the only Pokemon that gets access to Scald now, right? Or is Steam Eruption? Does it still have that? Yeah,
it has both. Yeah.
Okay. So like that move alone hard carries this Pokemon in my opinion, because you know, pre-Gen 9 I would say Scald is like a top 5 move in the game, and so getting access to that is big game here.
Yeah, it's huge.
I think the speed tier of this thing isn't great. That being said, this draft doesn't suffer too much from speed problems. They probably need something that's like blazing fast, like 120 plus.
Well, you have treads with the booster helps. Palmok can easily run a choice scarf, Soaking and Amorous, Salamence as well, right? So you have good speed options, and even Volcanion itself. You have 4 pretty good scarfing options. I would say 2 like top tier and 2 mid tier scarfing options. So also there's a little bit of T-Wave spam here between Muzzle from Palmok and Cresselia Thunder Waving, right?
That's actually a good point.
Salamence as well, if I'm not mistaken. So you have good speed control options. It's not too bad. Although Volcanion, personally, myself as well, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's great if you can commit it to like a breaker rule, but it's very often it has to come in a defensive role because of its water typing. So exactly. If Lars can get another water type alongside the Volcanion that doesn't share a lot of weaknesses, maybe just one, that would be great. You know, definitely something
like
to look out for.
A water ground type paired with this thing would be phenomenal, right? Like it would be really solid. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe
with
like
that.
a Gastrodon for sure. Yeah.
Something. Something in that
Quagsire.
vein. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, moving on, we do have the Edmonton Coilers coming in with the Donphan. So, yet another great pick for the Coilers. I've used Donphan myself this generation, and I really liked it. It obviously doesn't have the offensive capabilities that Tusk or Treads do, but as the first of its kind, it's a great rapid spinner. Still has access to Ice Shard. I think it gets Ice Spinner now as well, same as the other two, and just still a really good Pokemon, especially if you need that rapid spinning roll, which Thundurus is going to appreciate a lot. But just the team as a whole, right? You don't want to get spike stacked on this team and so on and so forth.
Right. No, I think this is a really solid pick. It's a really solid pick that goes on, like, does a lot for an already very good team. You know what I mean? Like, giving them a rapid spinner. I like so much when I'm drafting. I always prefer having a spinner as opposed to a defogger. I think it's so much more value. Obviously, I think you kind of want both in a team normally. But Donphan is a great spinner, really good offensive piece, can be kind of incredibly bulky as well, at least on the physical side. I think this is a great pickup. And just like being able to spam, like giving yourself an option to have like an Edgequake mon that has really strong Earthquakes, I think is great for a team. It's great for this team specifically. So
let's not forget about the decreasing distribution of knockoff and the fact that this thing gets knockoff.
Yeah.
So now they have Valiant and Donphan, whereas normally Thundurus could have accomplished the knockoffs. Now Donphan's going to be able to do that as well. So that's going to be really nice for them.
Yeah, that's a big point.
Speaking of knockoff mons, our next pick coming in here is probably one of the best, I think, in the snake portion, and it's going to be Hisuian Samurai, going to play more esports. General Tar Heel picking up this monster of a Pokemon. This thing has seen a huge surge in the Smogon OU tier as one of the best leads, just immediately getting up a spike if it hits that Ceaseless Edge. It is not a 100% accurate move. It would be broken if it were, but this thing is really strong with sharpness, new ability that we got in Gen 9, access to Swords Dance, knockoff, Sacred Sword boosted by sharpness, Razor Shell and Aqua Cutter both usable. One doesn't have perfect accuracy, but it's stronger, it has secondary effects, etc. Just I've seen this thing be run bulky, has access to Priority and Sucker Punch and Aqua Jet. Just a really good mon overall. Now let's look at it on the team. What do you think of it in this team composition?
I think it's great. This is one of like the first picks that I really thought is like fantastic for the team. Giving them like a really like I always really value having something that has like a reasonable attack or special attack stat that has like good priority moves. So giving them something that can you know, like I'm pretty sure this thing gets Sword Stance, right? Like you can Sword Stance, Aqua Jet, Sucker Punch. Like, not that that should be its main role. I think Ceaseless Edge is insane here, and giving you a way to like set up a spike, like a layer of spikes that is not blocked by magic bounce is huge. But I think that this thing is just so versatile. It can kind of do that like late game cleaning role. If you want to set up a Sword Stance and then go the priority route, you can use it to set up hazards, which is kind of insane for an otherwise like offensive-ish Pokemon. And yeah, no, I think this is great. I think their team also really benefits from having just like a layer of spikes up, because this is the kind of team that could force a lot of switches. So I think it's a really solid pickup here.
Yeah, with first impression Slitherwing, Roaring Moon in the Sun, you are going to force those switches for sure. I mean, Dark and Water types historically have been really good. Greninja, Crawdon, Sharpedo, right? We know that this typing is really good, and this thing has everything that it needs, really. Its speed is perfect for choice scarfing as well. It's looking like one of the better scarfing options on this team, outside of like Heatran in the Sun, right? You also have that. But yeah, no, this is great. Obviously, whatever Watermon you get here is going to be hindered by your own Sun if you bring it in tandem. But I think this is one of the better ones you could have gotten, because it doesn't completely rely on its Water Stab.
Yeah, exactly. Because the dark type stab is also very good. You know, I think that picking a water dark type that like, yeah, sure, your water type attacks will be hindered by the Sun, but you still have those really good dark type options, like getting knockoff, Ceaseless Edge. That's a big game. I'm a big fan of this one.
Absolutely. Moving on, we do have the Wolverhampton Weaviles coming in with the Rotom Heat. So we mentioned the Rodum Forms, and it seems like 2 of them are already gone this round, and probably more to come very soon. Although the 2 best ones have been taken here. Obviously, Rotom Heat getting a huge buff in Gen 8 with the access to heavy-duty boots. And it does somewhat fit this team. Again, it's a similar speed tier to Great Tusk. They hit almost the exact same speed. I think it's a speed point lower. So what we had mentioned with this team yesterday was that the speed was kind of all bunched together in groups, with Iron Leaves being really close to Screamtail, which is like that's their speed spread, is Iron Leaves to Screamtail, and then it drops to Tusk and Rotom Heat. So I think it's still fine. I think them having all of these speed options is pretty good. We want something that's like blistering fast, but again, there are good scarfing options here, just like with previous teams. Walking Wake, Gengar, Iron Leaves. As far as Rotom Heat goes, I'm not 100% sold on it in Gen 9, just because it doesn't get access to things like Pain Split, right? Defog, which is something that you'd want to do with Rotom Heat. Lost a couple of important tools. How do you see this thing fitting on here?
First off, I have to correct myself from earlier. I didn't know the Rodum Forms lost Pain Split. I said that Rodum Wash could still do its like standard Pain Splitty thing.
Sorry for not noticing that. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I think it's fine. I think the ground immunity here is pretty big. Not that they have like a massive ground weakness, but getting an immunity in seems really good for the team. I agree. The speed tiers are all like very clustered. Like Rotom Heat is close to Great Tusk, and then the other 4 Pokemon are all clumped between like 104 like within 10 and points of each other. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So the speed distribution here is not great. Like you want something that's like blazing fast, and I think you also want something that's like incredibly slow, like a Clodsire or something on the low end that just gives you a little bit of Trick Room protection. Maybe Clodsire is not the best example to use for that, but just something slow. The typings I think the team benefits from here, but the more I look at this team, the more I kind of agree with what you said yesterday. This team, I think, is going to suffer a little bit from lack of ability diversity. Like, we have the 2 unique abilities on this team. I mean, outside of like Photosynthesis and Quark Drive, obviously, like those are 2 individual abilities, but you know they
Cursed
do
Body
the
and
same
Levitate,
thing.
right?
Right, yeah, Cursed Body and Levitate, and not that should hamper the draft too much, but I think it could.
Yeah, my issue with the speed is more so your opponent's ability to run like adamant on certain things because they don't have to run jolly or modest, right? Because everything is so bunched together that if you're not going to outspeed one thing, you're not going to outspeed the rest either. Right. So that's my issue with the speed. But enough harping on the Weaviles. They got more picks to make, so we don't know where this is going. But next up, you mentioned them on Clodsire. That is exactly what the Bullet Punch Club took in this round, and this team just keeps getting better.
Yeah, honestly. This is a fantastic pickup. I love Clodsire.
Yeah.
This team also, I think, really benefits from it as a Pokemon here. Like, you get its ability to be a water immunity, which is pretty big. It also still just has access to Unaware, which is fantastic. Yeah. And this thing just, like, it doesn't die to special attacks. It doesn't. Like, you can build this thing in a way where it's just not dying to the special hits. And I think that's pretty nice to have on a Pokemon. And not to mention, it's just like the ultimate hazard setter, right? Like Stealth Rock spikes, Toxic spikes. You can just slap Recover on it and just let it sit there. Yeah, I think this is a great pickup here.
For me, it's sort of like a pseudo emergency button in a lot of sense. It gets access to Haze. It's Unaware ability, obviously, but the ability to go both Poison Point and Water Absorb. 3 amazing abilities, by the way. That's even better than Quagsire. Its stat distribution is better than Quag. It hits better. It can run Body Press. It has like just so many good options in both the status department and even the offense department. Like you can like realistically run this thing as a sweeper because of its dual typing. It hits almost everything outside of like your Corviknights. Other than that, it goes pretty ham, and it's just like you said, a great defensive option on a team that was otherwise pretty offensively minded. Like you can run Roostina, you can run Bulky Azumarill, but like typically these mons are going to be run offensive. Goldango is like the one exception where it's really good in both roles. But Clodsire now being a dedicated, not only hazard setter, but just defensive mon, really good for Uzi here. I think that this was a great pickup for this round. Honestly, Clodsire should have gone this round. Absolutely.
Really, really strong. Agree.
Yeah. And next up, sorry, I'm a little delayed here. There we go. We have the Maryland Torterrapins. Kelly coming in with the Hisuian Electrode. Now, this might seem like an early pick for an Electrode, but this thing's really good.
Yeah,
is what I've learned.
Yeah, I think this thing this was kind of my like sleeper pick for the Hisuian mons, where I think it might have been a little slept on. The speed is phenomenal. So this team went from like already having like a pretty decent speed distribution. Like it's not the best, but this gives them something blazing fast, right? Like that 150 base speed is incredible. This also adds on to the pivoting that they already have. Like this thing can just come in and volt switch. And more so than that, Chloroblast is really good. It's really on something that just wants to volt switch, right? Like Electrode's normal mode is like come in and you might do like one utility thing, but your ultimate goal is to volt switch into something else. And now you can't just switch in your ground types and be like, oh, it's gonna be okay, because Chloroblast, it'll blow back things. It's really, really strong. Yeah, I think this is a great pickup here.
Let's keep in mind, I personally think that Kelly should Terra the Baxcalibur, but if he chooses to go a different route and Terra something else, there's a chance he might Terra this Electrode, and then it's a real problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like if you were to choose, say, Quaquaval right now looks like the most reasonable of the 3 A's. You could do Quaquaval and Electrode, and that would be a pretty good Terra pair, honestly. I would still personally go Baxcalibur, but it's an option, right? Yeah. So a few things opened up here. He does have to fix the speed in between Baxcalibur and this thing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Moving forward, that's going to be something to address, but we'll get there when we get there. Speaking of mons above base 100, we do have the Atlanta Victinis coming in with the Zarude pick. Now, I already liked this team. The more I looked at it yesterday after finishing the auction, the more I liked it, and now I like it even more. This is a great pick for this team.
Yeah, Zarude really strong here. I think this Pokemon just does it does a lot in such a very tight package, right? Like it's a really good pivot mon. It's really good at like kind of breaking. It's a great setup mon. And I think that jungle healing is really, for me, what makes this thing, right? Like being able to say like you can Will-O-Wisp me, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can flame body me. I can get rid of it later.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Is pretty big. I think this is a great pickup here. Good speed tier. Like, yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah, this is I've seen Zarude go Scarf so many times because it's so good at breaking with its dual stab. Like Dark plus Grass was laughed at for a lot of the early generations with Shiftry and Cacturne, right? But Zarude really turned things on its head, I feel.
Right.
And really made this typing viable. And it even has defensive applications, honestly. There are some Pokemon that just can't break it.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Because they don't get access to U-turn, and then they're just stuck there, and you have to switch into one of its stabs. And it can be really annoying. And if you can U-turn momentum into Urshifu or Skeleturge or Sandy Shocks,
exactly.
This team has a lot of momentum. Like I think every mon except for Skeleturge has a pivot move, and that's cracked. That's really good. Yeah, I'm liking this team more and more. We just have to fill out the speed between Zarude and Torn, and then we're done. Essentially.
Right. Yeah. Agree.
The team already looks amazing. And maybe get like a defensive water type because Urshifu can play that role occasionally, but it doesn't want to. So
it doesn't want to, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It wants to be super offensive. Yeah. Maybe a defensive water type. Good call.
Yeah, I think that would be the move moving forward. But moving to Geo, the New York Empoleon, coming in here with Fortress.
Bro. This Gen 6 draft keeps getting better.
Look, I didn't want to say it because we don't know where it's going from here, but I mean, it's just the Sarah just standing there on its own. But Fortress,
bro, Sarah
interesting pickup for this round, for round 6. I think that this thing could have stuck around a little bit longer, but maybe Geo was really scared of not being able to get like a decent steel type. They are running out.
I would think so.
I'm kind of a fan of Fortress this gen. I think it does a lot better than it has in other generations, just because a lot of things lost access to Mystical Fire, as well as Hidden Power Fire, obviously, last generation. So Fortress keeps getting like progressively better. It's not quite there yet, and the power creep makes it so that like walling isn't really a thing.
Right.
And it's really hard to keep your Fortress alive, but if it gets to do what it wants to do, which is spin and maybe like put up a spike, put up a stealth rock, then things like Greninja and Garchomp and even Sarah go crazy here.
Yeah,
so.
I'm a big fan of Fortress. I think this is a great pick for Goldo's team here. Like really, really good. You know, like it's obvious that like Fortress only does like utility things and like maybe volt switches. But I've always been like such a fan of having like one Pokemon that can just, if that's its role, you know? And like, sure, that means it's like taunt fodder a lot of the time, but I think this is a really solid pickup. Like you said, like being able to get hazards up, being able to remove hazards, and then like put pressure on for these Pokemon that can force switches like Garchomp and Greninja, I think is pretty big game. So
yeah, I did say Geo, by the way. I do want to apologize. It's Goldoa, my bad. I get those two mixed up so often because they both start with G. I'm sorry. It's just the letter G. I'm bad with the letter G. But Fortress is fine here. We'll see how it continues. But like I said, I don't think that this needed to go this round. I think that
I do agree. Fortress normally sticks around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up, a mon that shouldn't even be below the A tier, personally, in my opinion. We have the Chicago Dragapults picking up Iron Hands.
I super agree with that analysis. This Pokemon really like is the definition of bulky offense, right? Like nothing's one-shotting it ever. It's really hard to take this thing down. And it does so much damage. Like this thing is very good. I didn't know. I honestly I looked at the end recap yesterday and I was like, no one got Iron Hands because I don't know all the tiers off the top of my head. I was for sure this thing would have been A tier. Yeah. This is a great pickup. Like, this is like super slow, which I think it benefits from. Very bulky. I think it does a lot for this team as well. I think that this thing you can slap on any team, and I think it's great. So.
Yeah, it's an absolute steal. Definitely crazy. Just obviously, it's locked into its ability, which is, of course, Cork Drive. But this thing is the one thing that like really doesn't care.
Right,
Like,
absolutely.
It's so bulky. With an assault vest, it's crazy as well. Don't be fooled by its low special defense, and it breaks really hard too. It's very hard to switch into is the problem, because
Right,
you can't even
absolutely.
OHKO it after you switch into something. You can switch in your ground type, doesn't matter, it's not going to die.
It's gonna live a hit. They're gonna build it to where it lives a hit. Do not ever assume you're gonna want Hoko this thing without a crit. It's gonna live.
Absolutely. Let's not forget about the resist berries. This is draft format, of course. So
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah. So moving on to the final pick of this round, of round 6, we do have the Copenhagen Sawsbucks coming in with a personal favorite of mine. I really like this mon. Is Talonflame. C tier seems about correct. It's just a really good mon because it can be run super offensively with Swords Dance, and it can be fit into a defensive role really, really easily. It's got Moltres' typing and Moltres' ability in Flame Body, and with heavy duty boots. It went from this offensive powerhouse in Gen 6 to now really being known as like a defensive staple and one of the better defensive fire types, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, Fast Taunt, Fast Will-O-Wisp are both really strong brings here.
Yep.
It can just spam Brave Bird if it wants to. I think this thing is like really good. It's kind of a Gloomon, It's probably never going to be like the all-star of your game, but it's going to tie a lot of things together. Like, you need something to check their really hyper-offensive physical threat. Just bring this thing and like let it click Will-O-Wisp or let its Flame Body proc. I think this is a great pickup here. Also, the speed tier is nice. They already have, kind of like Blazing Fast with Iron Bundle, so they didn't necessarily need something in that range, but it's a really good pickup for that.
I actually like filling out the speed gap between Zoroark and Bundle, and this thing's faster than Meowscarada as well, which is kind of like the benchmark
Solid
that
pickup.
I set for like super fast in this format. So.
Right.
Really big. I really like this. Having two really fast mons is just a mega bonus. And what's great about Talonflame is that it doesn't have to be run fast. It can be run fully defensive.
Exactly.
Just get it to 301 in level 100 terms, and you get past Great Tusk, and you're fine. Because that's its role, is to just beat Great Tusk that week, right?
Right, yeah.
So
just to Will-O-Wisp it, or I agree. Yeah, this thing's a good, solid pickup.
Yeah. So that rounds out round 6. Let's take a quick look at what the teams are looking like now. We do have a graphic ready for that, and here it is. So, who do you think won this round? I personally think Uzi with the Clodsire pick, and as well as the Iron Hands pick from the Dragapults.
So the Iron Hands pick for me, I think, is like the biggest pickup here. I think that mon is so good, and I think it's almost like criminal that it went this long. I think there are some teams that would not benefit from it so much, but I also think there are a lot of teams that just could have picked it up and it would have been fine. You know what I mean? Yeah. I really like the Electrode from the Torterrapins. I think that's a really solid pickup. But yeah, the Clodsire from Uzi, maybe the Donphan for the Coilers, also really good, solid. Yeah. And I do like Alecki. I think that the Arcaniners team needs still just like a little bit of balancing, but I think the Alecki is like pretty good like budget pickup here. So
yep, I would say so.
A good round. We're seeing a lot of these teams filling out. Oh, the Samurott H. This was a good round. This was a strong round. I think most people picked up something that really helps out their team. So it just shows that these coaches know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think the two picks that I'm like most iffy about are probably like Fortress and Volcanion, if I'm being honest. Maybe Rotom Heat as well. Those three. Yeah. But maybe I just don't like fire types. I don't know. Maybe I only like Talonflame. It's the only fire type
you don't
I
like fire types or bugs. No, the Fortress, you're right.
Or things 4x weak to fire, yeah.
Right. The Fortress probably could have went later. But I do understand, like, I've been in a situation where I'm like, I'm not going to get a steal. So I get that.
For me, like, I see Iron Hands picked up immediately after him, and I'm like,
yeah,
dude.
That's the power discrepancy. Those two Pokemon shouldn't be in the same tier.
But like you could have, absolutely not. But you could have definitely picked up Iron Hands here because it doesn't even clash with Zapdos in the slightest.
Right. Yeah. That's actually that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's round 6. We can move right on to round 7. As like I said, we already have our graphics ready, and we're picking it back up. We're snaking back through. As you guys know, this is a snake draft, of course, and the Copenhagen Sawsbucks are back with the Slowbro pick. Very nice.
Good.
I like this.
Solid pick. Yeah. Really good. This team, I think, needed something that was really good defensively. Like Landorus T was kind of before Talonflame. I mean, Talonflame. A lot of Talonflame's like implied defensiveness comes from being able to like dampen physical attack stats with like Flame Body and being able to roost back up. This thing can just take hits, which is huge. And does this also get access to Chili Reception or no?
No, unfortunately, and it lost Teleport as well, so it's kind of limited in that sense. But I think Slowbro is still a fantastic mon.
Yeah,
cannot
it's
sleep
really
on this thing.
good,
especially in the C tier, right? Like you don't lose much from picking this thing up. That's really good.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a good pick.
Yep, and yeah, I mean, like, maybe fix up the dark weakness a little bit, because Hydra being the only switch into dark. Oh, well, there is Lilligant as well, actually. That's a fighting type. Never mind.
Yeah.
Forget me.
I mean, Lilligant doesn't really love switching into anything, but it is, it is another resist here. Yeah, like, does this team... Yeah, this team needs a fairy. This team just needs like a bulky-ish fairy, and it's this team's good. It's golden.
Yeah, or just something to take a dragon hit. You know, like a steel type would be great here. I think that's like maybe the next order of business.
Maybe a fairy steel type.
Oh, maybe a little Klefki action.
little Klefki action.
Little
yeah, would do this team.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, Tink would be solid on this team too. Actually,
I agree absolutely. Yeah, nice speed for it as well, because it falls between, I believe, Lando and Hydra.
Yeah,
which is really cool. But yeah, that's a solid pick for Frosted, and we'll move on to the Chicago Dragapults coming back in with another pretty good pick. We've got the Serena.
Yeah, this is a good pick. I think having an offensive grass type is pretty neat for most teams. You know, a lot of grass types I think are delegated to their more defensive roles. So having something that can hit hard is good. Obviously, getting fighting type coverage is good for this thing, and then also just being able to spin. This thing being able to spin and shut down priority moves, you know, just gives it a couple different angles of play. I like this pick. I don't think the Dragapults have made a single pick that I think is like bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every pick this team has made has been like at least good at a baseline. So I like this one.
Yeah, funny enough, the Pults are quite weak to common forms of priority, so Queenly Majesty is quite nice. Things like Sucker Punch, Aqua Jet, Bullet Punch are all things that sort of plague this team.
Right.
So I do kind of like the Serena. I'm just looking at the speed right now. I think it's fine with Pult and Moth sitting at the top.
Yeah,
honestly.
I think you get a lot of leeway with Pult and Moth here to like... The rest of your team can be a little bit slower, and it's not the worst.
Yeah, you can probably get some lower grade like base 100, right?
Right. Yeah, they probably want some like mid speeds here to kind of like fill out. But so far, I think this draft is doing really well.
Yeah, looks solid. Next up, we do have Goldoa. Sorry, not Geo. Goldoa. Back, the New York Empoleon, after picking up Fortress, felt they really needed a fairy and got Florges. Now,
this is the best Gen 6 team.
Yeah, it really is. It's crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Florges in the free spot, which means it was a B tier. I don't know if I would have grabbed Florges here personally.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a good fairy, right? Like, it's a really solid defensive fairy. I think there are other fairies still left that could have played a little bit better.
Well, we mentioned Tink and Klefki, right?
Yeah, Tink and Klefki.
Those could have filled out the role completely between the last two picks.
Yeah. Even something like, even if you didn't want like a more defensive fairy, something like Gardevoir could have been decent here. Yeah. Gardevoir, Hatterene, those type of Pokemon could have been fine here. This is good. This will, swallow special hits, obviously. I really value Wish Passing, so I can see the appeal to that at least. So
yeah. Even then, I think I'd still grab Sylveon first, personally.
Yeah.
But for me, Florges is a B tier. Not a huge fan, especially without Defog, right? I'm pretty sure it lost Defog as well.
Yeah, I think it lost Defog, which is a pretty big blow to it.
Yeah. It did. So, I don't know. I mean, if Goldoa can make it work, then he'll shut me up, right? It's as simple as that. So that's it for this round for the Empoleon. And next up, we have JV and Gravy back at it. getting another great Mon, and you did mention this Mon as a potential fairy just now. We have the Gardevoir. There it is.
Yeah, Gardevoir super solid here. Just always does a little bit more than you kind of expect it to in a draft.
Yeah.
Really good coverage, like decent speed tier. This thing also is just the dual stab of Psychic Fairy benefits it really well. I think this is a great pickup for this team too. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, solid speed, honestly. That was kind of the speed range that this team didn't have yet, right?
Exactly.
Great scarfing option once again. And I think it's really undervalued just how good Trace is as an ability.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like being able to Trace Regenerator, which I've seen done multiple times before. Being able to trace like weather boosts as well as a choice scarfer. Like if you're really scared of, say, like a Golduck, right? You can check the Golduck with your scarfed Gardevoir. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's another one of those kind of emergency button mons for a lot of situations, similar to like it's similar to Ditto and Alakazam and stuff, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I view Gardevoir. But obviously, it's a great Calm Mind setup mon. It's a great Wish Passer as well. I think it gets Healing Wish too. So
yeah,
that's
I was
pretty
gonna
big into
say
stuff
Healing
like
Wish.
Urshifu.
Yeah, exactly. Like Healing Wish into Urshifu here is pretty scary.
And
yeah, I think this is a
honestly.
yeah. Oh yeah, good point. Let it get chipped early and then come back in later and sweep. Yeah, this is a great pickup for this team.
Yep. Next up, we have the Maryland Torterrapins. Kelly coming in with the Cyclizar, the fast bike. There we go.
This is a pet Pokemon of mine. I love Cyclizar. I'm gonna go ahead and assume, since it's in the B tier, that Shedtail is banned. This Pokemon, I think, even without that, it just does kind of a lot with its very limited move pool, right? Like it can Rapid Spin, it can Dragon Dance. You can do kind of like, you can play it offensively with Double Edge, like Dragon Dance Double Edge, or is it Dragon Dance or Shift Gear? Maybe it's Shift Gear.
Shift Gear, yeah.
Yeah. So
which is arguably better.
Yeah, even better, right?
Yeah.
So you can also just kind of like use a mix set and Draco Meteor. I think this thing gets knockoff, which is, like you said, pretty scarce in this gen. I think this Pokemon's great.
I think the knockoff is the big thing here, because that's going to open up Ursaluna to be able to spam Facade quite a bit more as you get rid of helmets, right? On certain Pokemon. It's going to open up Baxcalibur as well, because you're going to get rid of Resist Berries with knockoff, and having the two dragons means that oftentimes a similar mon or the same mon has to come in on both. So that's going to happen a lot, and I think you get a lot of value out of knockoff into U-turn pretty much whenever, right? And just having regen is just really solid. Plus, normal and dragon typing is actually pretty good, honestly.
It's good, yeah. And again, this is just another piece to the Torterrapins team that can just pivot around, right? You can just bring this thing in, you maybe taunt something, and then you go out into one of your like big hitters like Baxcalibur, Ursaluna, or you go out into another Pivotmon. I don't know. I see a lot of momentum in this team, and then you have these pieces that are really good at just like breaking things down like Baxcalibur and Ursaluna, and I think it's really good. So yeah, solid pickup here.
Another really good pickup coming in here from the Bullet Punch Club. We're halfway through this round, and we see a Uxie. Uxie, very good. Very solid mon. Obviously, still getting Stealth Rocks and U-turn. New move added to its move pool in Mystical Power. Very interesting for Uxie, because one of its biggest problems was being able to get up its special attack, as its defenses are really good, but Calm Mind is just like not enough to get it there. And Mystical Power can really do the trick. So it can actually become a really scary offensive threat really fast. And it's just a great utility mon overall. With Thunder Wave, I believe it gets Yawn as well. It's just really, really annoying as a lead or like an early game mon to force your opponent to switch around and play around it and try to chip it down, when really that's its objective, is to fool your opponent into, oh, you need to beat this now. And you never really can until later in the game. So Uxie, fantastic here.
Yeah, I think this Pokemon just, I use this term kind of a lot. This is a really good glue Pokemon. It's just going to hold your team together from week to week when you need it to, right? If you need something that can just blanket take hits, Uxie's great for that. If you want something that is like a really defensive setup mon, Uxie's great for that. Good for setting up. Stealth Rocks, as you said, and then also just like all the utility, like Encore Yawn. I think you mentioned all those. Also, this thing gets Memento, right, which is pretty sick, and like
and
can
screens.
be pretty sick into like Dragonite. Yeah, exactly.
Let's not forget screens with this team with Belly Drum Azu and DD Dragonite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I forgot about the Belly Drum Azu. Yeah, just being able to like screens or Memento into those things, giving you like one guaranteed turn to set up. Big game. Yeah. This is a good piece here.
Yeah, I mean they're just loading up on Stealth Rockers at this point, right? Bullet Punch Club is getting all of their hazard setters. And that's
good.
It's quite important. And they started off the draft with just like 5 mons that get. Well, Meowscarada has spikes, right? So they have 2 Stealth Rockers and a Spiker. Honestly, I think I think they're good.
Yeah.
On hazards.
Really solid here.
Other things here. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, next up we have the Wolverhampton Weaviles with a really cool pick in a Bisharp. So Bisharp often looked at as a Pokemon that was not great to draft previously. As far as a Dark type goes, with a 4x weakness, not so great. It wasn't super bulky, couldn't switch in on like certain Shadow Balls and stuff. Often things that got Shadow Ball got Focus Blast, so it was tougher for it. And of course, as a Steel type, doesn't really resist Fairy. But with the addition of King Gambit into this gen and its ability to run Eviolite, we've seen Bisharp actually perform very well.
Yeah.
Very well.
Also, notably, I think, I don't know specifically what they want to Terra here. Bisharp's like a pretty good Terramon, too. Like, if they want to do like an A tier and a C tier, Bisharp into like just like a fairy type is pretty good for them, honestly. And I think being able to run Eviolite and then just do kind of like the Swords Dance Sucker Punch thing is pretty big game and like a really good value pickup here. I would like to see maybe like a more defensive Steel type on this team. But I think that in terms of like a C tier Steel type, Bisharp's really solid. So
yeah, what I really like about Bisharp is that like previously it wasn't really a good fairy switch in. Now with Eviolite, it can switch in on Moonblast and trigger Defiant a lot of the time.
And
then just immediately be a threat.
Yeah, that's actually a very big game. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool mid-range mon. And honestly, they needed another Stealth Rocker because you never want to put Stealth Rocks on Great Tusk. You want to avoid that at all costs.
You want it to hit, right? So,
you want it to hit or you want it to spin, but you never want it to put up rocks. So having another Stealth Rocker here, super important.
Big game. Yeah.
And I can really agree with that. Next up, we do have... we talked about this mon yesterday.
Yeah, we did.
General Tariel coming in with the Dash one. A little early for it, I feel, but they did need a fairy.
Little bit.
And maybe they're scared of opposing fire types.
Hey, I mean, we said this yesterday off stream. This is the only ChiU Check in the game, outside of some like crazy Terramons. This is the single ChiU Check. This is it. This is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit early, but I'm not sure like what fairy types are still left on the roster. I'm kind of I like my fairies to be specially oriented. I don't think this thing is, but it is like it's a solid Pokemon. It gives you kind of like that fire immunity, which is nice here, especially since you're powering up opposing fire types. So there's that.
It's tough because I don't feel like Sylveon fits this dynamic of this team. It doesn't really fit.
Yeah.
So Sylveon's kind of off the table, and then the rest are all typings you already have. With the Steel typing, you already have Heatran, Diancie, right? You have Glamora already, so it's kind of tough to find a fairy that fits.
Hatterene is still live, and I think a pretty solid.
Yeah,
I think. I don't know. I'm sure Hatterene's not a C tier Pokemon. I'm sure it's like probably a B. Would be my guess. So it would have been a free pickup here, and maybe they want to spend those points elsewhere. I like something that can be. This thing is just. It's kind of dinky.
Hatterene's actually an A.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind.
Yeah, so it wasn't taken yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, that shuts me up. Okay, maybe this is the best fairy left on the sheet.
Possibly, yeah. At least for their team, it might have been the only thing worth getting.
Yeah.
But, I still think it's a little bit early. I think they could have waited one more round for this thing, but
to
each their own. That's probably fine. It's a good wish passer. Gets body press. Doesn't do much else. Not extremely viable or anything, but good enough. Moving on, we have the Edmonton Coilers coming in with the third of the Rodum Forms selected in Rodum Mo.
This is my favorite Rodum form. I think this one is so good. Yeah. This is a good pickup for the team. This is another one of those teams that just like every pick has made so much sense. You know what I mean? Yeah. Every pick has been really solid. Every pick adds to the team in a meaningful way. I think this is great.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're wasting like a single point in their budget.
Right.
Just looking at the overall squad. What I would like to see is a little bit of speed.
Yeah, something faster than Valiant.
No, not even. I think Valiant's speed is fine and Thundy's speed is fine because they're going for a more like bulky offense team, right? You're never going to be able to get blistering speed, especially not this late into the draft, I don't think. Sure. But I would like to see a fill because there's a huge drop off after Thundy. Like massive, and it drops down to Rodum, and there's nothing in between. I'd like something at like, 100, 105. Other than that, I mean, Rodum already improves their speed because they were really getting slow. Without the if we're discounting the Valiant and the Thunderous, but there's Rodum super good mon here. Does share the ice weakness with Thundy, which is weird, right? They're both electric types, but they both happen to be weak to ice. It's kind of annoying in a way.
That is, that is actually annoying.
But they do have T-Tar, Goodra, and Slowking, which can pretty much blanket check like any ice move coming out between the three of them. So I think that's fine, and just having the extra bit of momentum. The access to Will-O-Wisp, I think, is the biggest thing. That's pretty big. Is going to be really, really big for them because that opens up setup opportunities for so many of their Pokemon. And I think that's what's really going to help here.
Yeah, agree. Yeah. Everything you just said.
Yeah. Speaking of ice weaknesses, the next pick up on the board is an interesting one. I didn't know if we'd actually see this drafted, especially with the tier that it's in. But we have the Borussia Donphan coming in with the Weavile. Now, Weavile, of course, massively weakened this generation. It didn't need Triple Axle to be good because it was good before it, but it helped. But the loss of Knockoff is... I think that's pretty big. However, they do have something that's, once again, blisteringly fast, which is a piece that they were kind of missing, right? They topped out at an Amorous, which only hits that base 106, I believe. And that's not quite fast enough. Weavile really fills in that role and can actually knock out and threaten a lot of the stuff that it's faster than. Despite losing Knockoff, it still has access to all the other strong moves. Night Slash and Icicle Crash and Priority Ice Shard is always nice too as well. Swords Dance, all that jazz.
Yeah, I think this is a good pickup. Like, obviously, this Pokemon is not quite what it was last generation. Yeah. And I think you're right. Losing Knockoff is the biggest hit here. Night Slash is so hit or miss. Like, for Night Slash to really be good, you kind of want that high critical hit chance to proc more often than not. So it's like a little bit of like an iffy move. But yeah, getting access to Ice Shard and Icicle Crash or Ice Spinner. I think this thing also gets Low Kick is kind of like its fighting coverage, so it's not dead against Steel types. Yeah, I think this is a solid pickup here. It might be tiered a little high. You might be right about that, but again, speed,
it's hard to tier at C though, right? Because like it's a massive drop off from like A to C because of the loss of Knockoff seems a little bit much.
Right. Yeah, it is hard to tier it so low, especially when just like Ice Dart coverage offensively is really, really solid. So, yeah, I think this is a good pickup. I could see this putting in a lot of work at like weakening down things that they really want to break down and like maybe win the game with a Namorous or Iron Treads or something like that. Yeah, I think this is a good one.
Yeah, second to last pick of the round, and we have the San Francisco Arcaniners coming in with the Hawlucha. Interesting. So getting another flying type here felt as if it was necessary. I like Lucha this gen. I don't see where it slots in the team. If you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I think so. This to me indicates that they are gonna pick up a terrain Pokemon at some point, right? Probably with one of their free picks.
I don't know about that. It'd have to be like what, Indeedee or Pincurchin? Maybe Rillaboom, I guess.
Rillaboom's
still,
on the table. Yeah, Rillaboom's on the table, and it's probably the best one left. Well, I think Indeedee's also fine, but yeah, I think this to me signals that like they maybe want a terrain Pokemon, or it's like on their radar at least. Hawlucha's interesting. It doesn't need terrain necessarily, you know, like you can do the like acrobatics shenanigans. I think that also what's the other ability? Not Limber, but
Mold Breaker.
Yeah. So this is like one of the few Pokemon that can like haunt. Is it Goldango, right?
Yes, that's right.
So like this thing has like, you know, kind of its niche uses, and it's really interesting, and it's really fast. So maybe not the fighting type I would have picked up, but I think it's good.
I like its speed for his team because he was relatively slow. It helps out alongside the Alecki from last round. It's actually got a really good defensive typing if you look at it.
Yeah,
it's able to switch into a lot of things really well. And Limber's actually a pretty good ability as well, because it prevents you from getting like staticked from Zapdos and stuff, right? Thunder Wave.
Yeah.
And it allows you to keep.
Yeah, so you can still spam your acrobatics or brave birds or whatever, your high jump kicks.
Yeah, it lets you keep your fast and bulkymon at the same time, right? Because I think that George is going to be using this as a pivot a lot of the time to switch into moves, Roost Up, or I believe it gets Defog as well. So this is one of his only forms of removal alongside Alecki, right? So that's going to help out too. I think he's focusing up on removal, looking at the last two
that's
picks.
True. Yeah, this is a really solid, like, I guess like I'm still stuck in the mindset of thinking of Hawlucha as like almost exclusively like an offensive like game ending piece, when you're right, it does actually have like a lot of utility tied to it that I think goes underused. So it's
not to say
really
that
good
like
point.
Not to say that like choice band sets aren't viable with like Brave Bird and close combat and stuff, right? But yeah, obviously it does have a defensive role to play as well, and that's more so signaled by Gen 9 than anything else. I think it allows it to do what it wants defensively because of the mons present this generation. But yeah. Moving on to the final pick of the round, we have your favorite team, the San Diego Snugglers, D.Rey, coming in with the Toedscruel. How do you feel about Toedscruel?
I drafted this thing at the beginning of the generation thinking that it was going to be great, and I think I was mistaken. I'm not the biggest fan. I think there's probably that it might say more about me than it does about the Pokemon. Like I'm not comfortable using it in the way that it probably should be used, because it's got really good coverage. The speed tier is good. You know, the like grass ground typing is a little subpar. It's not great, but this thing gets a really it has a really solid move pool. I think that the ability is what like stopped me from bringing it every week. I just, you know, I would say like, oh, you know, I can spore something, and then look at damage calcs and be like, oh yeah, I might be able to spore something, but it's gonna die first.
Yeah. It's actually funny because it's kind of a two-sided coin here in whether Mycelium Might is actually a curse or a blessing, because a lot of the time you want to burn a turn of sleep and you can't, because the Toedscruel goes last, and they score you after you attack them. You don't kill them. They get recovery through Giga Drain. They get to knock something off for free, and it can be really annoying to actually have the Toedscruel go last on a specific turn.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, again, the move pool this thing has is great, right? Like knockoff, rapid spin, Giga Drain, really solid here. Spikes, I believe, Spore, like really good. I think that I was just always like, I don't know, you know, like 4x weaknesses are sometimes pretty rough, and Ice is a pretty, like, in my opinion, like a particularly bad 4x weakness to have. Yeah. Just because like sometimes like a lot of teams want to pick up a really solid, like at least like tertiary ice beam or like some type of ice spam, just because so many of the like good dragon types are also 4x weak, so like every team has some way to hit this hard. I don't know. It's an interesting pickup. I would love to see if they can make it work.
Funny enough, a lot of the things that get ice moves this gen or that are spamming ice moves are ground types.
Yeah, exactly,
So,
with Ice Spinner.
yeah, and the only one that doesn't like take super effective damage from grass, which is Treads, takes super effective damage from ground.
Yeah, that's
So
actually a solid point.
so it's actually quite difficult to get in your ice coverage on Toedscroll a lot of the time. That's what I think makes it very interesting, because it keeps its base 100 speed when it's attacking you. It's just when it's not attacking you that suddenly it's slow, right? So yeah, I'm actually I'm half. I'm not sure yet if I'm sold on Toedscroll as being a fan of Toedscroll. As far as on their team, I think it actually works. I think it's quite nice.
I do agree with that.
It's going to force like safety goggles brings, because it's going to be able to spore quite easily. Because you never want to attack into Toedscroll and then have Annihilate switch in.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
It's really annoying.
That's actually, that's an insane, that's actually like really good built-in synergy there. I like that a lot.
Yeah, so the players are going to have to watch out attacking Toedscroll, because you might just hit into Annihilate, and that could be detrimental or game-ending even. But yeah, that's it for round 7. That's all our teams, and we're going to take a look at the end of round graphic, which we do have already prepared for this round. And there we go. There you have it. There are the teams. Vivid, who do you think won this round? Who's looking like the best team, rather? Not who won the round, but who's looking like the most solid team?
Okay. I'm still, I'm still pretty high on Bullet Punch Club. I'm high on the Torterrapins team for sure. Playmore Esports, I think, is putting together something really interesting. I think the Donphan pick up this round, I'm not like the biggest fan of. If you like held a gun to my head and you
I wouldn't
told
do that,
me, like,
but yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, sure, okay, thank you.
And
you told me like I had to pick 3 teams, like what 3 teams are you for sure going to make playoffs just based on their picks alone, or like what you see right now, I would go Torterrapins, Bullet Punch Club, Coilers. Probably.
Really?
Those would probably be my 3. Yeah.
I would actually, I think, go Bullet Punch Club, Coilers, Dragapults.
The Dragapults are they're up there. Like if we're going like top 10 teams.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. That's
top 10.
12.
There's 12. Whoa, hold on. Back up.
No. Yeah, that team's really solid. I think that, like I mentioned this during this round, just like I think the Dragapults and Coilers have done so much with every pick. Just like haven't made a single pick that I'm like, this is mid. Like every pick is like good or better.
Yeah, absolutely. The Serena, personally, I don't like drafting Serena just because I feel like as my grass type, it has to do a little bit too much. It has to spin. It's like it feels a little bit off. It's like not bulky enough. It's bulky, but it's not bulky enough to be able to like have long survivability. I don't know. It might work on this team though. We'll just have to wait and see how it works out. But everything else, I'm in love with. I think that they have a fantastic team. If they could, like I said, just get something at about the 100 or 105 speed, they're pretty much golden. So, that's my top 3, I think. And I personally think the best pick of the round, if I had to pick one, if you absolutely twisted my arm...
Which I wouldn't.
Yeah, thank you. Hard to say. I kind of like... I think Kelly's Scizor might actually be the one of the better picks of the round.
That's for sure my pick here. Like I said, like Scizor, I think is like such a neat Pokemon, and like its move pool is like relatively small. It doesn't get a lot of moves, but what it does get, it uses so well. And like the speed tier, regenerator, it's just like it's good. I think it's safe to say that this thing it's so versatile. And like you think they're just gonna bring it in and like U-turn or maybe taunt, and then they shift gear, and now all of a sudden you're facing down like really beefed up double edge. I don't know. I think this thing is pretty cool. Yeah.
All right, back to it. We have our next round 8, I believe. Yes, this is going to be round 8. That was round 7 recap. So we have the Snugglers coming back again with a mon. You mentioned utility just now, and Scizor's utility. This is quite the utility mon here. I don't think it does anything else but utility, and that's Klefki.
This thing is interesting. Go ahead. What do you got?
No, I was just going to say lost defog. It's a big problem, obviously, but they do have Toedscroll, and I don't think they need too much removal here. Maybe one more piece, one defogger, and that would be fine.
Yeah.
Because with Rapid Spin on Toad Scroll, you're already looking pretty good. Just punch in a defogger and you're pretty much set. The team's not super weak to hazards. Arcanine's probably going to run boots when it comes as a defensive set anyway. So it's probably okay.
So the one thing I kind of love this pick, and the one reason I kind of love it here is that priority screens with Annihilate specifically is a recipe for a winning game, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you can like ever get an Annihilate in and get it behind a substitute and just start bulking up with screens up, you're in a really good position to just not lose from that point.
Yeah.
So I think that having, like a steel type that comes in, it has the resistances that this team probably needed, that can set up spikes to kind of like chip things down for like Palafin jet punches to pick up KOs, or to set up screens so that you can get Annihilate in and win the game.
Yeah.
I think is like a lot of value in one small little tiny package. It is unfortunate that it lost defog, but I think that the rest of the utility it brings is probably pretty valuable.
There's another thing it lost that's pretty important too, and that's Toxic.
Yeah.
Despite that, though, I think the Klefki actually happens to be one of the better physical Terra stoppers in the format.
Yeah.
One, priority Thunderwave is really annoying.
Yes.
Two, if you Terra into a Dark type or an Electric type, Dark types are hit super effectively. Electric types, if you're a physical mon, you're going to get hit by foul play. This is what I've discovered with Klefki, is that it's really hard to terrestrialize and set up in front of this thing, especially if you're a physical attacker. If this thing's on the team, it pretty much blocks that. And on top of that, they have Palafin, they have Arcanine with E-Speed, they have Gothitelle to trap you if you do get Thunder Waved. Like, there's so many annoying things here. This is one of the most annoying teams in the draft, I would say, by far.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the pieces for the Snugglers here are coming together. I like this Klefki pickup quite a lot. At first, I was a little mid on it, like at my first reaction, but after thinking about it, I think it does a lot for the team, and I think that that's really solid. So
for sure,
strong pickup.
Moving on, I think you were right. Here comes George with the Rillaboom.
There we go.
The San Francisco Arcaniners do get the Terrain Setter, which is going to help Hawlucha, but not only is it going to do that, it's also going to help out ChiU, as well as Garganical. And it's even going to boost Amoonguss's grass moves. Why not? Let's go for it. The Rillaboom, I believe, is a... let me see. I want to see if it's a B tier or a C tier. It is a B tier. And it did lose Grassy Glide. That's a big nerf.
That's a big hit, yeah.
Yeah, but however, it does still get a lot of really good options. U-turn, I believe it still gets knock if I'm not mistaken. One of the few.
Yeah, it gets
Pokemon
knock. So like U-turn, knock. Yeah. I think it's I think there's also a lot to say for just like these like incredibly strong wood hammers in grass. Like in Gen 7, we obviously didn't have the toys we do now, but Tapu Bulu was still like pretty threatening just with wood hammer, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So I think that this thing gets a lot of utility pieces. That's great. I love grassy terrain. It's my favorite terrain. Obviously, you provide the like residual recovery for your opponents too, but I have such a soft spot for like sub-leech seed grassy terrain builds that I think that that's something that it's something that Rillaboom is like secretly good at. It has like a good speed tier for it. It's like reasonably bulky enough to do that. And then also its signature move, right? Drum beating.
Yeah, drum
just
beating
means
is really good
that
too, lowering your speed.
Yeah, like like sometimes maybe it's not Grassy Glide. Don't get me wrong. It's never going to be Grassy Glide, but it makes it a lot harder to switch into if they bring drum beating on the set, because all of a sudden the Pokemon that would have outsped no longer does.
Don't forget that this thing can also run Trailblaze. So Swords Dance Trailblaze is also an option. If you don't just want to drop one mon speed and you just want to increase yours to sweep through.
Increase yours, yeah.
Also
that's actually a solid point.
Yeah.
And, for what it's worth, the stab Trailblaze in grassy terrain is probably not going to tickle sometimes unless, it's resisted.
Hey, didn't we mention yesterday that George should probably drop Volcarona for Sneasler?
Yeah, this would be...
That would be huge here.
This would be great for that.
Oh, yeah.
I like this pickup. I think it also, like, Yeah, it rounds out the Hawlucha to, like, as you said, like, maybe more of a utility piece to now the Hawlucha can actually be a legitimate threat along with the utility that it brings. Yeah, I think this is a good pickup.
Yeah, just one more thing you have to prep for on top of ChiU Volcarona up at the top, which is
they're coming back. They're coming back. This is a good one. Oh, and Regieleki benefits from the terrain. Yeah, this is solid. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It does. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, no, George is figuring this all out. I did see George say, "Wow, Aleki gets Rapid Spin." I had no idea earlier in chat. But you know, we have faith, George. We know you're a good player, so we know you know what you're doing. Next up is the Borussia Donphan drafting a grass type. I'm not a huge fan of, but I have seen drafted quite a few times. I think basically on the merit of its typing alone, which is Bramble-Gast.
Yeah, I think this is more of like an okay ghost type than it is like a grass type, right? I mean, I think Strength Sap is like really good. I think Strength Sap can be a broken move. This thing gets spikes, which is interesting. Its Wind Rider ability is kind of interesting, right? Like it makes it immune to wind moves, which is very vague sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I think this thing, it's neat. It hits pretty hard. It's fine. It also gets Rapid Spin, so you know you can like Rapid Spin away hazards, and then maybe like Strength Sap some things down, and then hit kind of hard some Power Whips or what Phantom Force. I don't know what physical ghost type
Phantom Force, Shadow Sneak are its only physical moves. Yeah.
Shadow Sneak is interesting. So
Shadow Sneak's cool.
This thing is like it really wanted to be kind of like. I think people wanted it to be more like what are the other two, like Trevenant or the pumpkin Gourgeist.
Trevenant, Gourgeist, even Decidueye, you could argue.
Yeah, well, Decidueye I think is like legitimately like pretty good sometimes. Trevenant and Gourgeist were always kind of like Gourgeist was better than Trevenant most at like walling things. This thing's just like so frail; it's never gonna take hits. I don't know.
If it had Will-O-Wisp, I think it'd be fine. But the base 55 HP and 70 defenses like don't justify with this typing. This typing is more geared toward a defensive mon, and that's why Decidueye works so well. It's because it can run both. And then you have this thing which is like 90 speed, 115 attack. It looks like it should hit hard, but then doesn't have the move pool to pull it off. Does get Rapid Spin, does get a couple of cool things, but like I think it could really benefit from having Will-O-Wisp. The fact that it doesn't really hurts it. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of Bramble-Gast, but if they can make it work, cool, good for them. I'd love to see it. And I think they needed some typing like this on the team. I just don't know if this is the mon for it. So all right, moving on. We have the Coilers are back at it once again, picking up another fantastic mon for this team and just making it so much bulkier and hard to break. We have Alomomola coming in. So Alomomola plus Goodra, by the way, I just played this in a draft game, and it was impossible to break.
But
I could not shatter that core.
Also, Alomomola plus Slowking Galar is disgusting.
Dude, it's so this team
so
is
disgusting.
By the time you get around to breaking everything's gonna be weakened into range of just like Booster Valiant spamming Moonblast, and there's gonna be nothing you can do. That's how I see this team going down.
This might be like a little bit hyperbolic, and I could be very off base here, but this has got to be like top 5 wish passers, right? Just because any wish this thing passes is gonna fully heal whatever comes in next, right?
And the fact that it doesn't have to wish itself, I think is the most important part. This might be the best wish passer currently, if I'm being honest. It's an easy pickup in drafts because it usually doesn't cost a lot. As you can see here, I believe this is a C tier mon, so it's not too bad. It's not a B tier. Yeah, it's a C tier. So that doesn't take away too many points, and it just does exactly what you want it to do.
Right.
Another thing is it gets knockoff. So now they have 2 knockoff users. So spamming knockoff between Donphan and Alomomola, your super bulky stuff, just getting rid of the items that your opponents need, and then opening up your offense later in the game, Thundee Eye and Iron Valiant. I think that Dell is building this team fantastic. In a fantastic way. Dell and Owen, great job on this squad thus far. I'm really liking this.
I will say this mon, like, it did lose like it lost Scald and Toxic, right? So like you lose a little bit of that like residual damage that you would otherwise be able to do. But I think this is also probably one of the best users of chilling water, which is like such a terrible move in most circumstances, but really good on something like this. So really solid pickup.
Yep. Absolutely. Great team thus far. Great pickup this round. And we move on to play more esports. General Tar Heel picking up what I don't really understand the fitting on this team other than the flying typing, but we have Kilowatch roll. So what do you think? Why do you think they got this? Is it just the speed? Is it the flying typing? They needed something off the ground? What is it?
Feel like it's probably mostly the speed, right? Like, the speed I think makes the most sense here. It's a good pivot mon, right? Like, it's good at coming in and volt switching or U-turning, whatever. Electric flying is like a notoriously good defensive typing. This thing has notoriously bad defenses. It's interesting. I mean, it gives them a good pivot piece, and the ability to have something fast that can just spam hurricanes or thunders is great. This Pokemon would be fantastic if instead of Torkoal they had a Rainmon, but
that's another issue that I see once again is that it doesn't really fit the Sun core. Sun's not always going to be up. Okay, we need to get that. Out of our heads.
For sure.
But it's still a factor you have to consider. If you ever have to hit a hurricane in the sun, it just gets a lot worse.
Right.
But I think they absolutely did need the speed here because having Roaring Moon being your only fast mon starting to look kind of bad, right? Maybe get something with Chlorophyll here coming up.
That could be a really solid pickup. I don't know. I think this thing they could use it very well. It's just, I don't know. It's a little mid, right? Like this Pokemon in general, but probably also like a little early. I don't think many people are going to be looking at picking it up. And if they are, it's probably fine. You can probably find something a little bit better. Unless there's just nothing left on the dock that like breaks 120 speed that is reasonable. So
and I mean, it does start to get very scarce here. With speed. So I understand panicking and grabbing, not necessarily panicking, but really like putting on the gas and getting something fast right away.
Right.
I can fully understand that. I also want to make a correction. Alamomola does not get knockoff. The game that I played, it had knockoff because it was National Dex.
Okay.
But Aloe doesn't have knockoff, but it still has really good options. It doesn't take away from how good Aloe is, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, moving on, we have the Wolverhampton Weaviles, and Just Weavile is grabbing an ice type here, but not one you'd expect to see this early. We have Frosmoth. So this leads me to believe that this is going to be a Terramon, right?
This is a solid Terramon. I mean, this thing still gets Quiver Dance, right? Like, it didn't lose that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, this thing, actually, for a D-tier Pokemon, like, pretty good. The dual stab here is pretty reasonable. Having like something that can just spam ice types, being able to Terra into something like a ground type, just really something that resists fire, right? Like a rock type, a water type, whatever.
Water mainly, I think, is the big one.
And then just like Quiver Dance up. I think this thing is like pretty reasonable. Again, like a lot of the speed here is clumped, and we're not really seeing anything that kind of like breaks the, I don't know if it's Screamtail or Gengar. I know they're close. I think Screamtail's 111 and Gengar's 110. Not really seeing anything past that. And this team, I don't think, is bulky enough inherently to not have something like Blazing. So, but I do like the pick here.
Yeah, gonna be interesting to see how they deal with stuff that's above 111 speed in general. And also, I think it's pretty obvious now that it's going to be Frosmoth Iron Leaves, if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah.
That makes the most sense. I don't think you ever Terra the Gengar or the Screamtail, and I think you have to Terra the Frosmoth to justify even taking it this early, personally. But, I mean, it's okay. Again, I still think it's a little bit early for a Frosmoth, but that's all right. That's what they decided. Next up, we have a mon that probably should have gone by now, but... is a very good mon, very good speed for the following team. Bullet Punch Club back at it again with Lycanroc Dusk. This team just keeps getting better and better. Now they have two close combat spammers in Zapdos and Lycanroc. which is going to be quite nice for Goldengo as well.
Yeah,
'cause
absolutely.
You're going to be able to force out the dark types or just threaten them and then kill the other stuff on the team. You turn around. Another Stealth Rocker. Obviously, this can be used as lead rocks or just mid-game rocks if it's run bulky enough. And yeah, Lycan Rock, very, very threatening. Now,
Yeah.
I'd be remiss to say that they're gonna Terra anything but Dragonite, but I mean Lycan Rock would be a good option.
Yeah, like Terra Fighting, I think is like really solid for Lycanroc here. Yeah, I think Dragonite is like a very obvious, you know, it makes in my mind the most sense on the team.
Yeah.
Lycanroc's Dusk here, I think the thing that always like I'm always like this Pokemon on paper doesn't look super threatening, but then you get that Tough Claws boost, and then you just like have something that is neutral to rock, and this thing's choice banded, and it uses Accelerock, and it just kills it.
Yeah.
I think like a rock type priority move is probably one of, in my mind, the best selling points to this thing, because we know how good rock spam is and how good rock coverage is, and just being able to come in and it doesn't matter what the speed tiers are, but you just choice banded this thing and you click Accelerock and it's gonna do like 30% minimum. That's big game.
Yep, absolutely. I like this pick once again. They're filling out their speed as well. That fills out the speed between Zapdos and Meowscarada quite well here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Just another great pick. Just these guys don't miss. Bullet Punch Club does not miss. They have not
Solid
missed a
squad
single
here.
pick. Really, really good. Next up, we have Kelly and the Torterrapins. I think Kelly wanted to shed tail, but he can't shed tail. So,
oh man.
yeah, I don't know. He got both shed tail mons with no shed tail on them. That's interesting. But you needed a steel type. Orthworm's quite a good steel type. It's kind of like mini Steelix. I feel with its stat distribution and its move pool, it kind of feels very Steelix-y, but of course it doesn't have those ground-based weaknesses.
Right.
And also has access to spikes, which is quite nice. That's going to help the Ursaluna get from just missing out on KOs on stuff to just KOing them. Same thing with Baxcalibur, right? Bax feels like a mon that always misses out on the KO by about 15%.
Right.
And the spike can get you there, or the 2 layers of spikes. So yeah, no, this is I don't know. This looks like an early Gen 9 team squashed together. Just with the Grimmsnarl and the dual shed tail. That's what it looks like Kelly's going for here. But I know there's definitely a method to all this. What do you think about Orthworm?
I think Orthworm's a great pickup for this team, honestly. The team doesn't really have a ground weakness, which like Orthworm kind of excels at like patching up ground weaknesses in teams that have them. And so like, you know, you don't necessarily need to run. I think Earth Eater's still like far and away the better ability here. But yeah, just like having something that can come in and blanket check like most non-fighting type physical stabs, like fighting or fire. And then just like the ability to, this thing sometimes can just come in and click Iron Defense Body Press, Stealth Rocks and Spikes. I think this is a really, really good Pokemon for the team here. Gives them like something like a really good physical wall to kind of pair with that Slowking that's really good at taking special hits. Kind of like rounds out the defenses of the team, adds to their hazard setting. I think this is a great pick.
Yeah, I always ignore that this thing is a ground resist and it's only weak to fighting and fire.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is quite nice because fighting, of course, you have Slowking and Grimmsnarl to be able to semi check that, and then fire. It's always bad to go for a fire move into a Baxcalibur, especially if you're a slower mon. You never want to trigger that ability because then you can just lose on the spot. So yeah, quite nice. I do like Orthworm here, and he needed a steal, so this works.
Yeah.
Moving on to what's becoming one of my favorite teams, honestly, is the Atlanta Victinis coming in here with the dragon for their roster. Is Dragalge, and actually this makes a lot of sense. I think they're going to Terra, Skeleturge, and Dragalge, if I had to guess. Yeah. Because Gardevoir didn't feel right, but this feels like it's more worthy of being terastallized. I don't know what type necessarily you'd pick alongside your stab, because you only get one type that isn't your stab. But I could definitely see this being the Terramon alongside Skeleturge. Of course, if you don't go for Urshifu Rapid Strike, which I don't think you do with this team.
Yeah. Urshifu would be like a fine Terramon, but like having the versatility of Skeledirge plus like bonus here. Dragalge like actually like a really solid Terra target here. Just like Terra Dragon, adaptability, Draco Meteors are gonna rip. And then you could pick pick a secondary typing, just like water or something, because I think this thing gets Hydro Pump still. So I think this is like a really solid. It's a really solid pickup here. Sometimes its speed makes it kind of awkward to get in and work, but it normally has enough bulk that if you can pivot into it in one way or another, and then just like kind of, Terra and then Draco Meteor, all this thing needs to do to justify itself, right, is to like kill something with Draco Meteor a couple times, and I think you're really good. But it also has like
if you get 2 kills with your Dragalge, that's more than justification.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And then I also think that, like this thing has like some utility options that are kind of neat. Like we get Toxic Spikes. I think that Acid Spray is a move that probably doesn't get used enough. Having kind of like a more bulky utility set with like Toxic Spikes and Dragon Tail, Acid Spray. I think it gets Haze. Obviously, you normally want to be using it for that adaptability, like I'm going to drop a nuke on your team. But it can do other things too. I think this is a really neat pick.
I think the loss of Flip Turn hurts a little bit, but
a little bit.
I think it's still a very, very solid mon. And fits the team quite nicely. I like this. Needed a grounded poison as well, because the Urshifu, the Shocks, and the Zarude all appreciate, as well as the Gardevoir, all appreciate T-Spikes being gone. So that's quite nice. Moving on, we have the New York Empoleon finally picking something not from Gen 6 or earlier, other than the Ceruledge, of course, from yesterday. We have, going straight back into Gen 9, we have the Hisuian Decidueye. What do you think about this mon? I want to hear your opinion on it before I give my take.
Okay. So my take on Hisuian Decidueye is I've looked at this thing a few times since it's been released. Its signature move is insane.
It's bananas.
It is absolutely crazy. That being said, you have to find a way to outspeed things for it to be very good. So if you pair this with like a Choice Scarf, it doesn't have the best speed to be a Scarfer. Yeah, Trailblaze obviously is where my mind goes. Like Trailblaze with this thing, and just like, was it called Triple Arrows? Yeah, Triple
Arrows with Scrappy. That's
so that I mean, I think if you want to if you draft this thing, at the front of your mind, you have to be like, how do I make this outspeed things? Either how do I make this outspeed things, or what opponents am I going to face that just have like a generally slow team that this might outpace their walls? Because this thing is also really good at just shredding defensive Pokemon. I think it's a good pick here. I like it. I love seeing people use it, so I'm going to be interested to see how they use it. Okay, go ahead.
So,
what do you got?
Funny enough, for me, I think where this thing excels, and you look at it and you see Breloom's typing and you don't think this right away, but I think where it excels is defensively. Because it has niche resists, it has access to not very widespread moves. Knockoff and Defog are both on the set. You have U-Turn, you have Sucker Punch, you have Shadow Sneak. I think that's what makes this thing really good. And Roost, of course. I think that as a defensive option, it works a lot better. It's a really good like water check. It can soft check like water types, even going for Ice Beam. Because of its really good special defense. You run it especially defensive. And you can U-turn out that turn, then get in one of your breakers, and you're a slower U-turn because you're not a Decidueye, you're a Hisuian Decidueye. So you're quite a bit slower, 10 speed points than Decidueye, so you'll often get off slow U-turns, and that's actually quite valuable for this mon because of its bulk. 88, 95 on the HP and special defense is quite good. Defense is 80, which makes it a little bit tougher. And the quad weakness to flying, of course, just having a grass type already makes you quite bad defensively, but I think it's serviceable into certain specific Pokemon, and I'm curious to see how Goldoa is going to use it this season.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, we have the Chicago Dragapults with another fantastic pick. Billy Mays here with another fantastic bear, Ursaring. We have the second of the Eviolite threats from this generation. We saw Bishop earlier. Ursaring, I think, is the better of the two, personally. I think that Ursaring gained a ton of value this generation just because of Ursaluna. And it can be run like offensive, but with a lot of bulk to the. It almost feels like Iron Hands in a sense.
Yeah, I think this thing got so. Obviously, this was always like kind of a niche pick before this generation. You know, like because it hits really hard, and like Guts is a great ability to pair with something that just gets like. This thing gets Facade, right? Just like stab Facade, yeah. So like that alone is really, really valuable. But like just attaching an Eviolite to it and making it to where its defenses are like, I don't know what the math is roughly, but its HP stats like in the 90s, I think, and then its defenses are 75. So those go to like 100 and something. Like it's all of a sudden incredibly bulky. It gets bulk up. This thing can, I think, quietly got very, very good. I agree. This is a great pick, especially for how low of a tier it is. Like, this is one of those Pokemon that you can just switch it in, and if you're running an Eviolite in a relatively defensive spread, you're probably not dying to that first fighting type stab move, right?
Yeah, like, probably not. Yeah, seriously.
And
personally, I prefer to see Ursaring on a team that has like a weakness to status. This team doesn't really have that. Outside of like Scizor getting Will-O-Wisp, which is extremely niche, but like you have your Iron Moth to suck up T-Spikes. Thunder Wave doesn't hit Hippowdon or Iron Hands, right? So it's you're kind of the one doing the statusing, honestly, with Dragapults, T-Wave, and Will-O-Wisp.
Right.
Like it feels a little bit off, but Ursaring is just a fantastic Pokemon, like you mentioned. It can take that one fighting type hit if EV'd correctly with an Eviolite, which it could not do before. Which is so huge for it, of course. And you still have access to the Flame Orb set, the Quick Feet set.
Right,
it's
exactly.
very, very versatile for a D tier. It's probably one of the better D tiers, in all honesty.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty hard to prep for. Like, obviously, bringing the Eviolite means it's going to be pretty hard to like engineer a scenario where you get status. Yeah. So it probably doesn't happen, which takes away a lot of the value of Guts. But still, this thing, it's just going to be so bulky that.
Rest Sleep Talk would work, right, for Facade?
Oh, no, yeah, you're absolutely right. I
don't know if it boosts Guts, but it boosts one of the two. I know that. It's either Guts or Facade. You guys can confirm in chat for me which of the two it does that for. I'll wait to see the answer. But yeah, that's basically, I think, how it's most commonly triggered now with the Eviolite set.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Rest Sleep Talk, yeah. So that's another thing that you can do for sure. Moving on to the final pick of this round, and this puts us at halfway through the snake draft portion. We have the Copenhagen Sawsbucks. Frosted coming in with the Diancie that I mentioned earlier. So one of the few fairies left that can be drafted. It's a pretty good one. It got spikes. It can do some stuff. It did lose Mystical Fire, which I think is actually a pretty big hindrance for this one in particular, because Steel types switch in quite easily. There are a lot of Steel types that actually don't care enough about Body Press to mind switching in. So, and Body Press isn't stab either. It's not like it's doing a ton of damage, even to the things that it's super effective against. So it's kind of tough. I have used this generation. It's really good at leading and setting hazards. That's what it's good at. It's also good as, obviously, just a dragon switch in, right? The team didn't have one. You did mention that that Frosted needed a fairy at some point because Draco was looking really free into this team. And I think that it was important to get Diancie this round. And I can't think of too many other fairies that would fit here. Comfortably.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think this is a fine pickup. Like, it's a good piece. It fills some of the gaps that are needed here. It can do, like, you're right. Losing Mystical Fire is a pretty big nerf here. But, the access to Diamond Storm, at least, is solid, So this thing is one of those, like, it's a really bulky Pokemon. Kind of. It's kind of like, its HP is, like, so low that sometimes it just doesn't take hits, regardless of how high its defense stats are.
Yeah.
But it's bulky enough, and the Diamond Storms will hurt. Like, at least if they're neutral, they're coming off of a base 100 special attack, or is it attack? Physical. And so they'll hurt. I think this is a good mon. I think it's serviceable for what they needed. It's not the top tier fairy type in the format, but it is good to have something that can switch into those Dracos, which were otherwise like pretty free here.
Yeah, and I mean, Sylveon's a B tier. This thing's a C tier. It was really going to come down to one or the other, I think.
Right, yeah.
And I think going for the lower value Mon, if you're looking at something else in particular, is probably the move here. So yeah, it's pretty good. But
I probably would like, sorry, one last thing. I probably would like Sylveon a little bit better here just because the team doesn't necessarily have like a fighting weakness anymore, thanks to the Slowbro and the Talonflame. But the like first, no, never mind. There was like an initial fighting weakness in this team that we talked about yesterday, but now it looks like pretty well patched up, actually. So no, this is actually good. This is a good pick.
Yeah, so FranCTrode in chat, that's Lars's assistant coach, did mention that sleep boosts guts, but not facade.
Okay.
So that's the interaction there. So it's guts that gets the boost from sleep.
Okay,
so
that's big.
Yeah. And also, if someone on staff wants to let me know if what was it that I was going to ask? If I remember, I'll ask it again. But we'll move into the mid round, and we have the graphic up for the round 8 recap. Here it is. And excuse me, of these teams, I think the winner here this round, I think, was actually George. Either George or Dell. I think the Coilers or the Arcaniners won this one, for sure.
Yeah, I think. Let's see.
I just don't know if the Rillaboom is more impactful or the Alomomola. I haven't decided yet.
I think the Rillaboom is really solid for that team, especially if, like, again, we don't know if they were just like trying to throw out Volcarona as or like trying to upbid the Volcarona, because I think they got it for 50.
Yeah.
Yesterday, if they were trying to like just upbid to make someone spend more on it, and they just accidentally nabbed it.
Yeah.
If there's a plan to switch that out for Sneasler, I could see that being really, really strong. The Rillaboom here does kind of a lot for this team. Yeah, so I really like the Rillaboom pick. I'm also I think this Orthworm pick is really solid. But yeah, the Rillaboom and the Alomomola definitely really, really strong picks. And you know what? I have to gas them up a little bit here. The Klefki for the Snugglers does a lot for the Annihilate.
And
it does a lot for the Annihilate and a lot for the Palafin. There have been some picks there that I thought were like maybe a little bit questionable, but I think that one does the team a lot of good.
Yeah, Klefki is a fantastic one. I think like for me the top 5 are probably Rillaboom, Alomomola, Klefki, Lycanroc Dusk, and Dragalge, and maybe Orthworm falls into 6th.
Oh yeah, the Dragalge pick was very solid, and so is the Lycanroc Dusk. Yeah. Really good picks. Easy
to miss the Dragalge because it falls between Zarude and Gardevoir. It looks like Gardevoir is the last one picked up, but it's not. But yeah, that's who I would give like my top 5 to 6 this round. Not to say that the other picks are bad necessarily, but I don't know. It's some picks just happen and they pop out to you and they speak to you and they say, "Yep, this works." And those are the ones that felt like they worked for me this round.
Right.
So. Yeah. All right. I think we can jump right into round 9. We still have the graphics up for this round. And funny enough, this mon has a 9 on its tail. Good way to kick off the round. We have the Hisuian Qwilfish. That's right. The D tier mon, Hisuian Qwilfish. I believe this thing does have Intimidate? Yes.
Yeah.
So excellent Intimidate.
Same set of abilities.
Yep. Poison Point, Swift Swim, of course. Obviously not as strong as Overqwil. This is pre-evolution, but probably a lot better defensively. And with a really good typing, Dark Poison, which we don't have a lot of this gen, funny enough. We used to have so many of them. With Skuntank and Drapion and Alolan Muck. And now it's really limited to these guys, right? It's the Qwilfish gang and the Overqwil. So yeah, this is it's quite nice. I like this on the team. Gives access to T-Spikes as well. And it looks like it's a good typing to switch into fairies here for them.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is a solid pickup, especially like, it's always kind of hard to find like really good value, or sometimes it's hard to find value in these like really low tier picks. I think this is really solid value in the low tier. You get something that can set up spikes. Again, like you said, Intimidate. So this thing can be like kind of offensive. Obviously, there's no rain components here, so you're probably not going to be abusing Swift Swim. But if there's a chance, maybe something happens later. Yeah. So this thing can like be pretty good offensively in the rain. Also, just I think that its signature move has like a 50% chance to poison and then doubles damage. Yeah. Is like a pretty cool move, honestly, for a Pokemon that's like kind of slanted defensively. So you Barbarage, you set up your spikes, and then you're just like spamming Barbarage to get some poisons. I think that's like it's a good piece.
Makes it feel as close to Alolan Muck as possible, I think.
Right, yeah, exactly.
I think if it had a like slightly higher base special defense, it would probably be like a second Muck. Honestly, with the Eviolite. So nice pick for Frosted and the Copenhagen Sawsbucks for sure. This next pick's actually also very good. Definitely already looking like top tier picks this round. We have the Chicago Dragapults coming in with the Mesprit. We saw Uxie earlier. Don't know if we're going to see Azelf. Azelf is the straggler that usually gets left behind. But Mesprit is kind of the best of both worlds, can really function offensively and defensively, has a nice middling speed that makes it able to slow U-turn or fast U-turn, be an offensive threat with its stabs and coverage and whatnot, and access to Stealth Rocks, of course, which the team was lacking until this point. It was really only Hippowdon, and you don't always want to bring a Hippo. You're really only bringing it for like the super threatening electric types, because other than that, it's you have better options here on this team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Hippowdon very easily, like, you give that spot up to like Iron Hands in matchups where you don't face like a scary electric type, right? So Mesprit, I think, really good pickup here. Like you said, super versatile. These Pokemon, like, you're right. Azelf is kind of like, you only want Azelf on teams that are very offensive because it just doesn't take hits, whereas Uxie and Mesprit can both, kind of play that bulky psychic role. I think this is a solid pickup here. Ground immunity is always wanted, always appreciated. This is solid. This will do a lot of work,
especially when your flying type is an Amorous and your grass type is a Serena. I think that's very much appreciated to have that rotate. I'm liking this team quite a bit. I think that Mesprit's actually going to come to a lot more games than we might think. Maybe even more than an Amorous, if I'm being honest.
I could see that, actually.
That's a bold prediction from me for this season, guys. Write that down. Make sure to put it in bold predictions this season. God, I missed that show. All right, moving on to the next pick. We have the New York Empoleon. Oh, okay, this is an interesting one from Goldoa. Here we go. We had the Overquill, the Hisuian Quillfish a second ago. Now we have the Overquill, and this is good. This is good. This is what I like to see. This fits the team. Did have a Dark type. Didn't have a Poison type yet, and this is going to help with the Fairy switch-ins because Fortress is not really a Fairy switch-in. It can act as one occasionally, but it doesn't want to. And Ceruledge wants to stay healthy the whole game so that it can really get off its SD Bitterblade plays.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ceruledge can, like, if you're bringing it as just kind of like a bulky, like, just kind of like a damaging mon, like it can switch into things, but normally you want it to click some setup move and then use Bitterblade. You're right. This is a really solid pickup here. This does a lot for the team. Gives them that spike and toxic spike options, which is very strong here. Really breaking out of that like Gen 6 mold with like back-to-back like Gen 9 bangers here. This is a good one.
Yeah, Decidueye obviously far inferior to this Overquill. I think Overquill is becoming like a staple in draft this generation. I think like if it goes undrafted, it's a crime because it is really, really good. And you should be able to fit it on most teams because a Dark and a Poison type are often things you're looking for around the mid rounds to late rounds. So yeah, that's very solid. I like this from Goldoa, and keep it up. Let's stay away from Gen 6 and earlier. Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
Moving on, we got a Gen 7 mon here that I'm really not a fan of, but maybe you can tell me why this thing is good and why it works on this team, because I've loved this team until now. We have the Atlanta Victinis coming in with the Komala.
I frequently forget this is a Pokemon. Like if you ask me, I've said this several times on Twitter. I think this is the most forgettable Pokemon in the entire Dex. There's thousands. There's over 1,000. I think this is the most forgettable one.
Hold on, Luminion.
Bro, it's so I don't know, man.
It's gotta be one of the water types. I don't think this thing
maybe
kind of memorable.
It rapid spins, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it
So
rapid spins. That's about
It
all
rapid
does.
spins, and you can't status it, and its attack stat is fine, right? It's like in the 100s, like 110,
It's good. No, it's like
115.
120, I think. It's
Sure.
actually really strong.
So
That's like its
you know.
claim, right? 115, 115.
So it'll probably do stuff. If it gets access to U-turn and it can rapid spin, then it's fine. They
Yeah.
needed, a little bit of removal on the team. I think that's okay. And once again, this is just a nice little pivoty piece.
I know why they got this.
Why?
It's a ghost immunity. They felt they needed a normal type. They wanted another piece of removal. It's the only thing that fit the bill.
Yeah,
I'm sure
probably true.
that was the thought process. Again, I don't think it needed to go this early. I don't think Komala is like highly sought after. But for some reason, I've been seeing it go like round 9, round 10 lately. So maybe they know something that I don't.
Yeah, they've got the secret sauce.
Yeah. Seems that way. All right, coming in after Komala, we have this is a mon that I am a big fan of. We have the Maryland Torterrapins. Kelly choosing Salazzle. Nice speed for this team once again. Really filling out those high speeds really well here. Salazzle, of course, not able to switch into anything. It is made of paper. but it is quite offensively threatening. That dual typing is really hard to switch into. And the fact that it's one of the few Pokemon that still gets access to Toxic and can still hit everything with Toxic. Minus, I believe, Goldingo, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't actually seen that interaction yet, but I'm assuming that's how that would work.
I think so.
Because of Good as Gold. But yeah, being able to Toxic everything but one in the entire format is quite nice.
Right.
And that's really going to open up Baxcalibur once again. That's it's all to help the Baxcalibur and the Ursaluna at the top, and I think Kelly's actually doing a really good job of that. Really encompassing those physically offensive threats really well.
Yeah, I think this you did make one mistake. This thing can switch into moderately weak fairy type attacks, but that is it.
Yeah, even then, I don't think I'd want to take those.
You don't want it's like a D-Gleam, like a non-stab D-Gleam's doing 30% minimum or something.
Which is crazy, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no, this thing is, the dual stab here is fantastic. The speed tier is great. And once again, this team has enough pivoting that I think you can find spots to get it in. Like, especially like enough slow pivoting, right? With like the Slow King. Well, I guess that's really the only slow pivot here. The Slow King gives you like a really good option to like slow pivot into this thing and maybe break something down. You probably could switch into it with Grimmsnarl's like parting shot if you had screens up. So there's that. So this feels very well supported and like it will support the team very well.
Yeah, it seems, now that you mention it, the slow pivot with Slow King and the screens and the parting shot with Grimmsnarl are probably going to be the best ways to get it in for sure. Yep.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. And as far as U-turn / chili reception / parting shot targets go, Salazzle's not a bad one.
No,
because a lot of the stuff
all.
that's coming in to resist those 3 months specifically will be weak to Salazzle, funny enough.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Reaching the halfway point of the round, we have the Bullet Punch Club back at it again with another fantastic pick. We have Hisuian Braviary. How do you feel about this one?
This is a Pokemon that I have very little experience with outside of like watching, kind of like theory videos for people that play competitively talk about like what sets they think are good, or like watching like some Showdown lives or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that this Mon can do kind of a lot. Just based on the fact that its signature move always raises its speed, right? Like that's something that Quackwavel's signature move does, and that's why it's good. This thing has, I think it has all the tools it needs to be kind of like a special version of that Esperwing, right? That's the name of the move.
Yeah, it's called Esperwing, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that move alone, plus this gets Calm Mind, I think that combination of moves, if it got nothing else but those, I think that's kind of enough. But then this also gets like really good abilities and Tinted Lens and Sheer Force, right? I think that's also big game. So
yes, I think the big thing is Tinted Lens. This thing can act as a breaker out of nowhere,
right? Yeah,
sort of the way that Banded Braviary can, which is something that I just recently lost to. I don't know if you've ever seen the calc for a Tinted Lens Hurricane from Choice Specs into Corviknight. But I'll actually just bring that up real quick. Physically defensive, and I will put that in chat for all of you so you can see how much this does. It is stupid. It's absolutely stupid.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a big damage.
Yeah, that's a Corviknight, my dude. Even if it was max special defense, it's 2-hit KO'd. So, yeah, this thing is an absolute demon offensively. I think the big problem is going to be finding where to bring it, because you have the flying type in Dragonite and the psychic type in Uxie already that feel like they have to come to a lot of games. But Uzi, please bring this as often as you can. Even if it's just 2 or 3 games, I want to see it do work. I want to see Esperwing. I want to see Choice Specs with Tinted Lens.
Yeah.
I want to see all of these sets. This team is shaping up to become one of my favorites, and probably one that I'll be keeping a very close eye on for sure.
Yeah, this is a great pickup here.
Yeah. Moving on from Braviary, we have another flying type coming in here from the Wolverhampton Weaviles, and it's going to be Galarian Moltres.
Oh, this is a pet Pokemon of mine. I love this thing. I think it's so fun.
Yeah.
I think that, like, it's obviously, I think, probably not quite as good as standard Moltres, because not getting Roost is pretty bad for it, honestly. But
important, but it's more I think it's more geared toward checking very, very specific Pokemon, sort of like Mandibuzz does, right? And then obviously it's much more of an offensive threat than regular Moltres.
Correct. Yeah.
On the merit of its ability, it's the capability to nasty plot as well, and agility and all that jazz.
Yeah, I think that. Well. Yeah, I think that Double Dance sets for this thing are actually very strong, like agility, nasty plot. Yeah, I love this thing. I think its signature move is great. I think that the typing is great. It leads it to have like 2 very solid stab options to hit offensively with, and the stat spread makes it viable. I think it's good. I don't know about how well it fits into the team, because once again, we're seeing like the speed here is not fantastic still.
Yeah, but it's funny because you look at the team and it's a bunch of really good Pokemon. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, like every Pokemon individually here, except like maybe Frostmoth, like you know, like in a vacuum, it is good.
But do they work together? I don't know.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this Pokemon is great. I think that it improves most teams it's on. But I do think that we need to see like something that breaks Screamtail's speed in the next 2 picks for this team to really sell me.
At least something that isn't bunched together with all of the rest of the speeds. Because again, Moltres is so close to Great Tusk now. Like, okay, it's between the two. Like it's between Tusk and Iron Leaves, to be fair. But I think there is still a little bit of a speed issue there. At the very least, yeah, get something ultra fast, even if it sucks. Honestly, at this point. Just to have that ultra fast thing, I would say. I mentioned yesterday that a base 105 Mon might work for this team. Base 105 Mon is a very like really good speed to have, and Playmore Esports seems to agree, because they went ahead and picked Mismagius as their next pick for this round. Yeah, so I like this for them, actually. Yeah, I quite like this, because they needed another ground resist. I fully agree with that, because their first like 7 picks are 0 ground resists, while Slitherwing is, but it's not, because of its bad physical defense. But Kilowattrel and Mismagius. Kilowattrel I didn't fully agree with. Mismag I really like.
Yeah, I like the Witch a lot. I think she does kind of a lot. You know, the base 105 for all the bottom 3 stats like speed, special defense, and special attack means that this thing's never taking physical hits, but that's not why you pick it up, right? It has good coverage. The ghost typing, I think it probably benefits here, right? Like, we don't have like a fighting weakness necessarily, but being immune to fighting, normal, and ground in one Pokemon is pretty big here, because there is like a little bit of like a fighting and ground weakness going on with this team that's patched up with like a few little pieces, but I think Mismag like kind of really sells that.
Yeah.
That now you can't just expect to come in and spam Earthquake and maybe like Stone Edge to like nab the Kilowattrel as well.
Or
I think this is a solid piece.
On the Samurott with a close combat. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I feel exactly.
That. Yeah, no, I quite like this. Not too much to say here. Mismagius is sort of a mon that like Either it's going to do really well every week, or it's like almost never going to show up.
Right.
It's kind of in that realm. That's the way I see it anyway. If you have better mons than it's never going to come. But I can see it fitting on builds every week. It depends on how often they want to go with a sun dedicated strategy, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of sun and fire types, we have the Edmonton Coilers coming in with another great pick. We have the Tauros Paldea. That's supposed to say Blaze, but close enough. That's fine.
Tauros Paldea Fire.
Yeah, it's okay. I know they were making these slides at this point this morning, I'm pretty sure, so they were kind of rushing, so it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the pick. Very nice. I like it. I like the speed here. This is the speed they needed.
Right. Like kind of that middling, like base 100 speed.
Exactly, yeah. And fantastic abilities. Good move pool. I really like the Tauroses this gen. I think they're extremely viable.
Yeah, I agree. Like the mono fighting, water fighting, fire fighting, even like base Tauros, I think has always been like a pretty reasonable Pokemon. I think this thing is good. The like Raging Bull, the signature move, is great. Getting access to Body Press with like a relatively high defense stat is good. I think this thing gets Will-O-Wisp. That's also very good. Will-O-Wisp on like a relatively fast Pokemon that also has Intimidate. This thing does a lot. And once again, like they're just building out kind of like the perfect bulky offense team here, and they're continuing with that because the Tauroses all have like pretty reasonable like bulk, at least like physical bulk. I think the special is a little lacking, but
yeah. If you come in on a physical hit, the Tauros resists. It basically takes like 9%.
Right.
It's
exactly.
Very little. Like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's they're very good at that. Intimidate, just a great ability to have on this team to be able to shuffle around.
Exactly.
You can pivot between Tauros and Slowking G quite well.
Right.
And just keep shuffling between the two. And Rotom's also good for that. Obviously, those two bait out ground moves, and then Rotom is immune to the ground moves, and then can pivot back into them with Volt Switch. Yeah, I like this little defensive core that they have going. You're probably going to often be picking Slowking, Donphan, Rotom, and Tauros, and Aloe, like 3 out of the 5. And then as your offensive options, you're gonna go with Valiant, Thundy, and like Goodra or T-Tar, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think. No, this is solid.
Really solid pickup here.
Very good. The Coilers just keep doing it right. There we go. And here we go. Are we calling this one Mr. Man? You guys can let me know in the chat if you're here. Lars, Frank. If we're calling it Mr. Man this season, then great. Or is that an Amorous, actually? Because now you have 2 genies. We have Tornadus coming in for the Borussia Donphan. I don't know. Well, an Amorous is female, actually. Always female. So, Miss Woman? I don't know.
Could be Mrs. Man. You never know.
Mrs. Man, yes. True, yeah. Torn Eye, interesting. I don't know how it fits the team necessarily. Prankster's interesting here. It's a little bit faster than an Amorous as well. It's that 110, just like Thundy. And I could see it. Priority Tailwind, I guess, could be kind of cool.
I mean, Priority Tailwind with a Bramble Gas, you know.
Oh my God, yeah, totally, yeah.
We're seeing the combos.
It has Wind Rider. Does it go like 4 times speed? That's what should happen, honestly, in Tailwind. It should go 4x speed instead of 2x.
4x speed plus gets an attack boost.
Yeah, for sure. So Anamorous is, could be Mr. Boy, FranCTrode. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
We don't know. But, one of them is the staple. Lars is very well known for getting genies, and has two on this draft.
2 genies.
Very cool. Excited to see what this thing is going to do. I don't know how many games it's going to come to, but I can't imagine it's more than like 3, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. It's move pool, just like, and stat breakdown aren't very cohesive. They don't like blend together very well. But you know, I Prankster is a great ability. If you can find some spots to do some utility things with it, I think it's a great pickup. But little strange, but all in all, I think this team is still very solid. So
now I think this is a huge miss from the rest of the teams to let this thing go for so long. But George and the San Francisco Arcaniners, they are going to get Tinkaton.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is like secretly one of the best like lower tier steel types.
And fairies.
Yeah, exactly. Like one of the best like lower tier. It's just like such an annoying Pokemon, right? Like the typing is fantastic, and even though it's not particularly like physically bulky, it still manages to take hits on like its resistances alone. It can do like a reasonable amount of damage with its really low attack stat, just because Gigaton Hammer has like base 160 attack or something like that.
Yeah.
And all the utility it provides, right? Like Stealth Rock, Knockoff, Encore. Thunder Wave, it just does kind of a lot in this like little tiny package.
Super annoying one. I'm playing one later today, and I'm not looking forward to it. This thing is really good. George honestly got this as a steal this late into the draft. What is this, round 9? Is this round 9? It looks like a round 9. Yeah. So yeah, super late into round 9. That's absolutely huge. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this Pokemon. I think despite its really low attack stat, it actually is annoying enough. It's kind of like Klefki Plus in a way.
Right. Yeah.
It feels like a Klefki Plus where it can actually hit semi hard because it has a move that can do so, but it's mostly a utility mon with the best typing in the game. So,
right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Very big. Very nice to George and Haydunn. And the final mon of the round, we got another Eviolite mon coming in here. It is going to be the San Diego Snugglers getting Dunsparce. Interesting. Okay, I can see you needing a ghost immunity. That's for sure, because you don't want Jugulus to handle everything. You don't like Shadow Ball spam. I don't know if Dunsparce is the mon for it, but they also needed a stealth rocker. But again, are you really bringing this thing as your primary stealth rocker? I don't love it. I don't love it.
Oh man, I don't. I think this Pokemon's like so funny. It's such like a joke Pokemon. I don't even know if I have like real commentary to give on it. Yeah, it has Stealth Rocks, and I guess it can roost, and it's probably pretty bulky with an Eviolite. Like it'll
Eviolite. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. It's a pretty good value for where it is. Yeah.
It'll take hits. I think that like if you wanted something from the Dunsparce line, like I don't know, maybe spring for the free agent Dunsparce, but I don't know. Like I have a hard time imagining that there weren't better normal types open, but I mean this thing, if you really like are afraid of like you said, like a Shadow Ball spam matchup, like I guess this thing does the trick. I don't think it's going to kill the Shadow Ball spamming Pokemon, but it might force it out.
Yeah, that's the problem, actually, is that it might not be able to kill what it's trying to switch into. So, interesting from D.Rey.
Yeah.
We'll see if it pans out. But it's a wheel pick, right? So this might have been the round 10 pick, and they just chose it first for the ha-has. For all we know. You know, yeah, we're done with this round though, and we will be putting up the round 9 graphic here, and here it is. So, a lot of good picks this round, honestly. Right up until that Dunsparce. No, I'm kidding. So the Dunsparce was fine.
Oh no,
I'm joking, guys. But no, the round was very, very interesting. I loved the Overquill and the Quillfish picks. I thought those were very solid in the Mesprit. The round got started off so good. And then a lot of other really good stuff, like the Braviary I can see fitting the team. The Salazzle was good. The Moltres is good. Mismag, I don't see a lot of like bad Pokemon. I think that Tauros, if I had to say, actually no, Tinkaton was definitely the steal round. Definitely the best pick. Yeah.
I think the Tauros and the Tink, and maybe the Braviary, probably like best picks of the round. In terms of like actual like functionality within the team. You know, that Braviary will just like be able to operate as a breaker, and you're getting it very late in the game, and it's pretty rare to get something that powerful very late. Tinkaton offering a ton of utility and just being generally annoying, and then the Tauros just like getting late game Intimidate, like stapled onto a Pokemon that also hits hard. Lots of like power coming out in these very late rounds. It's kind of surprising. So yeah, good round. The Dunsparce is I got a good laugh out of it, so you know I don't hate it.
You know what makes me angry about it though? It's that they still haven't understood that they're like loading up on too many monotypes. This is like their fourth. The Dunsparce is.
Sure.
And I really don't like that. Like, okay, maybe like 2 or 3 in a draft is fine, but you really want that flexibility with the dual typings, unless you're talking about like a mono water, a mono fairy, like very niche typings, mono steel. Other than that, you want dual typings where you can get them, and that's why when we start round 10 here, San Diego Snugglers are back at it with their monotypes, and they picked up another one, and it's Persian for some reason. I'm not sure what the goal here is.
So I am a big fan of Alolan Persian. I think fast parting shots, as has been demonstrated by Grimmsnarl, is very valuable. And this thing is relatively bulky. Like physically bulky with fur coat, at least. That being said, it's a weird pickup in that, like, it's like kind of a similar speed tier as like Iron Jugulus, right? Like this thing hits 115, Iron Jugulus is 108, so 7 apart. So I don't know, it's kind of fast, it's kind of bulky, physically bulky at least, and the fast parting shot is nice, but this feels like the last two picks here I think are maybe a little soft, the Dunsparce into the Persian.
Lars said it's a cat, and there's no other reason needed to draft it. So
that is, you know what? Hey, I have 3 cats, so I'm there with you on that one.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. Might have a funny looking face, but like you said, yeah, fast parting shot is interesting. Does it still get knockoff? That's what I'm most curious about.
I have no clue.
It does not, so it lost that. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on from the Persian, we have George coming in here, and this is actually quite interesting. I just have to load up the slide. Give me a sec, because it's a little bit of a different one here. We're actually going to see something, I think, for the first time ever in the GBA. On this one, and George and the San Francisco Arcaniners are going to pick up Rodum as their final Mon. That's right. There is a round 11, but George is out of budget from this point. So he's allowed to stop his team at 10 Mons. I think in the past, we always had an exact Mon limit in every other season of the GBA. So this is something that's brand new, unless I'm absolutely off my rocker here. I'm pretty sure this is the first time. Also, this fits George's team perfectly. We did mention earlier that a Rodum form would have been perfect here. Obviously, one to hit ground types would have been a little bit better, like the Frost or the Mo, but this is just as good. And this is George's Mon. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when George went on a tear that one season, I think it was season 5 or season 6, might have been both, honestly. He had a Rodum where he did super well, and it was just taking lives every single week. Now, this, of course, was in earlier gens. He had it paired with a Megalopony. It's a little bit different, but I think that George really knows how to utilize this Mon to its fullest potential, and I think this is a great Pokemon for him.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything stated here. It would have been nice had this been able to hit ground type super effectively, but the ghost typing here is really nice, complements the team well. Having a second electric type that's off the ground is important here. Yeah, I think this is a great pick, and especially I talked earlier about finding value in the low tiers. I think this is really solid value in the low tiers. Rodum is actually quite good.
Yes.
Not as good, as its appliance forms always, but Rodum, base Rodum is quite good. So
yeah, the merit of the ghost typing as well is actually quite, if it had the stats of the other Rodum forms, I think it would actually be super high tier.
Yeah, I think if it had the stats of the other ones, I think that it would probably be second best after Wash would be my guess. Yeah,
somewhere around there, maybe between Heat and Mo.
Yeah,
very, very, very close. But yeah, super good Mon. I'm hearing that the rest of the coaches are more afraid of NA though. They're really scared of NA on this team.
NA.
Yeah. And they think that NA is just going to be the kill leader and win it out. So, yeah, that's it's big. We're ready to see what NA can do. But yeah, that's it for George. So we'll be skipping George for next round. It's kind of wild that he got to get 2 Mons this round. Nuts.
Yeah.
But coming in with the Borussia Donphan, now picking up everybody's favorite meme. We got Cloth. I like this one. I think it's actually quite good with Regenerator as a budget pick. If you don't yet have a rock type, which they don't, you know, it's a hazard setter. I personally like this more than Bramblegast, if I'm being honest. And Anger Shell's a really good ability as well. I think being able to get that Shell Smash out of nowhere on something that you can apply a good amount of bulk to, also very good. I don't know if it's going to come too often. I doubt it. I think as far as they actually don't really have well, Treads comes as the stealth rock setter like almost every week.
Right,
Cloth might show up with it once.
Yeah. Cloth is it's an interesting mon. I think like it's fine this late to pick something that's Anger Shell can just like randomly nab you a couple kills, right? And I think that's valuable enough. The Regenerator, like you said, very strong. This thing really kind of like very 1 to like 1.5 dimensional though, right? Like you're either gonna bring it with Anger Shell and try and like be a little cheeky, or you're gonna bring it with Stealth Rocks and like Earthquake, Stone Edge, or does it get Earthquake? It might not. I don't know. Stone Edge.
I believe it gets Earthquake. Yeah, if not, at the very least, it gets Stomping Tantrum.
Yeah.
It doesn't get Earthquake, but it does get Stomping Tantrum. It also gets Knockoff, Crab Hammer. Like, it's got some interesting moves.
Okay, yeah, Knockoff and Crab Hammer are, like, pretty big game. Knockoff alone is big game, and Crab Hammer is, like, interesting to have. So, yeah. I mean, I can see it. It's a decent low late game, like, low tier late game pickup.
Yeah, for a rock type to have a water move that powerful in Crab Hammer is actually pretty important because it can hit the ground types that want to switch on
absolutely.
It. So,
good point.
It has some stuff. But again, I think biggest selling points definitely regen, stealth rocks, knockoff. Most of those things Treads already has. So, interesting. We'll see if it's brought and how often. I think Lars already has a pretty good core up top to not have to bring these mons at the bottom too often. Bramblegast, Torn Eye, and Cloth, right? So, yeah. Moving on to our next coach, it's going to be Dell with the Edmonton Coilers, picking up Farigiraf, however you pronounce it. I say Farigiraf. I don't know how you say it.
Now, see, I say Farigiraf. Okay. So this is the kind of ghost immunity I like to see late game. You know, if you needed a ghost immunity, obviously this one doesn't set up Stealth Rocks. But this Pokemon is like pretty bulky, you know, like solid HP stats to work with, reasonably offensive. Probably not going to come too often, honestly, but is like still, if you need a ghost immunity, it feels like this one does a little bit more than something like a Dunsparce to kind of still harp on that pick a little bit.
I'm really annoyed at how bulky their team is, and with double Wish Passers with massive HP stats as well. Like Farigiraf having 120 HP is just stupid.
Right.
With Wish, Armor Tail is also really good ability. Sap Sipper, Cut-Shoot, like three solid abilities, right?
Yes,
three serviceable abilities. I really like Armor Tail personally, and then Sap Sipper just having that grass immunity out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Really nice. They already have really good grass resists, but like Goodra gets Sap Sipper as well, I believe. So
and like this thing kind of secretly can be threatening, you know, like. Calm Mind Stored Power is like a pretty reasonable set if you find like a spot to set it up in. I think it also gets Nasty Plots, and it just has like good coverage outside of that. So I think this is I think this is a great low tier pickup.
Absolutely. What I really like about it as a ghost immunity, as you'd mentioned earlier, is that it actually gets access to good, like serviceable physical attack with access to crunch and foul play.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So those are pretty big for it too. All right, moving forward, we have a ground type pick coming in for Play More Esports. It's going to be Sandaconda. Interesting. I expected Mudsdale to go instead of Sandaconda, personally. I don't know if they could afford it, though.
I love Sandaconda. I hate Mudsdale. I love Sandaconda.
Really? We're opposite in that sense. Okay.
Glare is great on this thing. Being able to like set up Glare, I love the fact that you can just kind of run like that rest shed skin set. So this thing has like a lot of longevity kind of built into it.
Sure.
Good rock setter. I don't know. I think this is a fantastic pickup here.
I find myself like shooting myself in the foot a lot with Sandaconda personally, because you want to rest and you think you're going to survive, and you never get the shed skin off and never procs, and then like Sandaconda doesn't have quite enough bulk. Like it's missing just a little bit of bulk to be able to be like really, really tanky and wall what it wants to wall. That's fair. Whereas Mudsdale is just like, okay, I want you to check this specific physical threat, and that's all you're doing all game. Don't try to be the hero. Whereas Sandaconda often tries to be the hero and do too much, where I don't feel like it's capable of doing so. But it might work here. I think they're going to appreciate Glare for sure. Having access to that status is going to be nice. They now have Mismagius with the Will-O-Wisp. I think Kilowattrel also gets Thunderwave.
Right.
So a little bit of status sprinkled in here at the end for Play More Esports.
Yeah.
This it's fine. They needed a good ground type. I think if you're not going to get Mudsdale, you're going to get Sandaconda. It's going to be one of the two at this point. It's pretty late into the draft, so ground is actually one of the types alongside like Fairy and Steel where there's actually very few good grounds. Luckily, there's only 12 coaches and not 16, so it makes it a little bit easier to work around, but it still gets very, very narrow very quickly as far as what the scope is of good grounds that you can grab. So, I mean, good on them getting Sandaconda. There we go. And moving on, we have... okay, so this is a good pick. This I like. Getting another flying type, though. Interesting. On top of Moltres G, the Wolverhampton Weaviles are going to grab Braviary.
Yeah.
Now, Braviary I'm a fan of. I like its speed for this team. You needed something a little bit slower than the rest. This is good. It fills the breaker role a little bit better. It can also be run really tanky, obviously, with bulk up setup. But I like this as a potential breaker for the team because that's kind of what it was lacking outside of Walking Wake, right? Nothing else really breaks here. Everything is sort of like, okay, we'll get into a pretty strong hit that'll do about 35 to 40%, but it won't 2-hit KO kind of thing. Whereas Braviary will like pretty much always 2-hit KO. Yeah. Whatever it wants to. So I quite like it.
Yeah, I think it's solid. 2 flying types in the last 2 picks. Like interesting. I think flying spam is generally good.
Yep.
So being able to like spam those hurricanes and brave birds, it is a pretty big game. This also notably like a pretty good scarf mon for them if they want, or like you said, like being able to set up bulk ups. I like this. It's also a defogger, right? Which is not nothing. I know they have Great Tusk, which is like one of the best spinners, but this one, this being able to defog could have some utility. So
yeah, if you don't always want to run spin on Tusk, that's definitely gonna help out. That's pretty much it. There's not much else to say about Braviary, but they'll see this thing do actually pretty well, and I can see this thing coming to like 4 or 5 games. Funny enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, into the second round of the second half of round 10, and we've got the Bullet Punch Club making a pick that I finally feel is uncharacteristic and not a great pick for their team. Funny enough, and it's Avalugg. Not a fan. Not a fan of Avalugg. I think fine. You need the hazard removal. I get it. Yeah. You're never gonna bring this thing though.
Yeah,
is the issue.
I was looking. Do they have? Does anything on their team get spin or defog outside of this? Oh, Braviary. Okay.
Yeah.
That thing never wants to defog. Much like the last Braviary, I guess. Like you don't want to defog with them, but I don't know. I have a hard time with Pokemon like Avalugg and Cryogonal where like you're really just picking them up last minute because you've neglected getting any type of removal up until then. Yeah. So you're like, oh, there's Avalugg or Cryogonal. What do I want? Which something that's fast. Yeah.
It's exactly what's happening here because as you can see, like, okay, Dragonite's going to run boots a lot. Their team's not too weak to hazards, but if the hazards start going up and stay up, it's going to get really annoying really quickly. So what they're doing is just insulating against that, right? Uzi's just basically saying, I have all these great mons that work so well. Let me toss in a defogger and a rapid spinner just to make sure that if there's a team that's capable of spamming hazards against me, that I have it covered. right? That's what this is.
Yeah, I will say I don't know the tiers off the top of my head. I mentioned that a few times. In an instance where I'm picking up like a panic hazard removal mon, I'm picking an ice type specifically. I much prefer Cryogonal over Avalugg, and I think it would also fit this team a little bit better.
I tend to agree. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you can find a spot to bring this thing in and get a rapid spin-off, then I guess it's done its job. So
yeah, and I mean, body press is pretty strong.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, because it has like a fat defensive stat, right? Like in the
180, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's even fatter than I thought. So, like a strong body press. It's just, I don't know. It's so slow. It feels like it's going to be hard to switch in and make it do something. It feels like it can be hard to even get a rapid spin off. But if you needed a spinner, this is the one.
Yeah. And now Kelly coming in here with, I think Kelly's making this team on paper as I'm looking at it, and I'll show you guys in a second what he picked, but it looks to me like it's a compilation of all the cool mons you picked up in a draft. Oh, I've never used that before kind of thing. That's what Kelly's team looks like to me, and Colossal's like another inclusion to that. It really just looks like a bunch of I've never used that before mons piled together. But it works. Funny enough, it works. I'm not 100% sold on the Colossal. Okay, maybe you wanted a Rapid Spinner here. That's probably what this is. You get more hazards on top of Earthworm.
Right.
And, okay, you already had a Rapid Spinner, actually, in Cyclozar. So I don't know what this Colossal is. I'm not sure what it's doing.
Yeah, the Colossal is like a weird pick here. It seems like, maybe not the best use of like a D tier pick. That being said, I think it's like pretty hard to get value out of D tier. We've seen a few times like coaches get really solid value. Colossal, like a mid fire type when you already have like a pretty strong fire type. Not really a great rock type either. Just like the weaknesses this thing has, it's going to be hard to find a spot for it, right? Like, I mean, I guess, this paired with the Earthworm, you at least have like something that really, really like the Salazzle and the Colossal, like the last two picks, like at least you have something that like really benefits from Earthworm's ground immunity. So that's nice.
So you're saying that Kelly got the last two picks to justify the Earthworm? Is that what's going on here?
No, I don't think he got them to justify the Earthworm, but I think that they were probably more justified because of the Earthworm.
Definitely.
Not that he had like a ground weakness going into this anyway, but yeah, already had like pretty reasonable removal. Like doesn't I might be wrong, but doesn't Quack also get spin?
Oh, you're right. Yeah, he has 3 rapid spinners. My bad.
Yeah. So like you're never gonna bring this thing as a spinner. I doubt. It's just so slow. Like you won't get the spin off. You're gonna get hit by like a chilling water from Olomomola and die. But I mean, if you can find spots for this thing to set up hazards, then that's nice. Having like a backup rocker, a backup, I'm sure this thing gets spikes. So
for sure.
Yeah, finding those spots, I guess, is nice.
Yeah. It's an okay mon. It has flame body, right? That triggers it a bit, and
that's
it's
true.
all right. It might come occasionally.
Yeah, really good like U-turn insurance, so that's good.
Yeah. Next up, the Atlanta Victinis are back at it with another great pick after making what seemed like an interesting detour in the Komala. We have Abomasnow. Now, this is a mon I'm a big fan of this gen. I think what it does for teams is crazy. First of all, it boosts its own defense through its ability, puts up the snow, and then can set Aurora Veil. And it's just really solid. Now, this is a C tier, by the way. It's not a D. Do you want to clarify?
If it's a C tier, I think that this also makes like a very solid Terra target. If you wanted to do like Skeledirge, Abomasnow, I think that's very solid.
Sure.
Because like Abomasnow's like weakest point is its typing, right? But being able to like set up the snow, boost its own defense, lose a lot of those weaknesses, and then spam like stab blizzards or set up Aurora Veil is pretty good value, especially for something this late in the game. I agree.
Yeah, I'll just switch back to the Colossal slide for a second, guys. We know that Quackable is misspelled. There's nothing we can do about it. It's all right, all right? It's cool.
Quag
Yeah, Quag. Yeah, so I like the Abomasnow. Having access to Ice Shard is actually going to help a lot here because if you look at the first few mons, there's like this dragon weakness, sort of like you can't kill dragons. And Abomasnow is going to help with Ice Shard as well, and so on. So, I quite like this. Really good C tier, but nothing more to say. Good. It's hard to fit Abomasnow on a team as well, and somehow JV managed to do it.
I think this is a good job of doing that.
Yeah. Next up, this is the team that it's going to. Interesting. We have, okay, I see it now. All right. We see the New York Empoleon Goldoa going for Lilligant. Makes sense now that I look at it. We are definitely terastallizing the Ceruledge and the Lilligant. 100%. Yeah. Needed a D tier to pair with the A tier. It could have been a C tier as well, but his C tiers are not terrible. Like they're not Terra-able, right?
Yeah.
Really, like Florges and Decidueye ain't really gonna cut it as Terramons. I guess you can make an argument for Decidueye losing the quad flying typing, right? But I think Lilligant is a much better choice here, especially if he goes with Grass and Fire.
Right. Yeah, I think that this Pokemon is like kind of, like a lot of value in a low tier pickup, just because I think anything that can threaten Quiver Dance, like Quiver Dance and actually like doing work with it, especially in low tiers, is pretty valuable because you have to respect it. And on top of that, getting access to Sleep Powder, while not, the most accurate move in the game, makes this thing just pack a little bit more of a punch. So, yeah, I think this is a really solid pickup.
Yeah, I think Oricorio is the best low-tier Quivermon right now.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, if I had to give it to one Pokemon. But Lilligant is also quite good, especially as a D-tier pickup. I've seen Lilligant do a lot of work in a lot of places, so really good. Next up is the Chicago Dragapults. QtheCostaRican picking up Rotom Frost, which we mentioned earlier. I think this thing is very good right now. Its dual step has always been tough to switch into. I think that's even more so the case now. Heavy duty boots makes this thing viable, of course, as you're not constantly switching into rocks if you choose to run that, of course. And just having that speed tier actually is going to help them a lot. That's a speed that they needed. And I think they can even go for one more little speed bump into the hundreds if they can, and that would be ideal. But this is already really good for them.
Yeah, I agree. This thing I think is has always been like kind of secretly strong, but the addition of heavy duty boots makes it really like it's really come into its own in the past like 2 gens. I think this Pokemon is a really good pickup for the team. The speed tier is what they needed, and you're probably gonna have to connect a few blizzards once in a while, and that can be a crapshoot. But outside of that, this Pokemon just has like a good move set, like a solid move pool to work with. So really good pickup here.
I agree 100%. Their team has shaped up quite nicely, and I think they're going to be one of the stronger teams this season, if I'm being honest. Doesn't really matter what their last pick is here. This just looks like a very solid team. And moving on to another team that looks very good, and I think is going to perform better than it looks, especially with the next pickup. We have the Copenhagen Sawsbucks picking up Magnezone.
Love this for them.
Yeah. As the only steel type on the team, I'm not 100% sure about it, but I do like Zone, and I think that it's extremely underrated. And I think that they have the speed to support picking up like an electric type that's not so fast. Between Zoroark and Bundle and Lilligant, Talonflame as well, right? I think that's plenty speed to be able to get a slower electric type here in this case.
Right. I think that this is there's a lot of value in having something like this to where you can now like trap and hopefully deal with whatever the opposing steel type is, and then let something like Hydreigon go to work, right? I think there's a lot of value in this as a pick here because obviously they have like Landorus T, but outside of Landorus T, not really the best ways to break down steel types. So just being able to trap it and either wear it down to the point where like it's just fodder at that point, or just eliminate it completely. I think this is a really solid pickup for the team. Really good.
I like the mind games with Magnet Pull and Zoroark. as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's actually like really solid. That's a really good point.
Yeah, that's really funny. And there's a lot of really cool things you can do with Zoroark on this team. And I'm excited to see this. Frosted, don't let me down. All right, so we have our round 10 recap slide ready. And in fact, our draft is on the final 2 to 3 picks. So we might need to stall a little bit, but I think we're going to make it in time. I think we've stalled enough throughout this this stream for them to be able to actually finish up their picks. So get to it, guys. But here is round 10. As you guys can see, these are the picks that were made this round. It's harder to tell because they can be positioned randomly within the roster. But we remember the last 20 minutes. Shouldn't be that hard to figure out. We started, of course, with the cat. I'm not even going to give it its Pokemon name. Of course, the notable thing to happen this round was George finishing his draft. So we'll be, of course, skipping George. But yeah, these were some pretty solid picks once again. Of course, there's always some duds. But what was your favorite pick this round?
Favorite pick this round. I am a big fan of the Farigiraf, honestly. I think that does a lot for their team.
Fair.
Like you said, giving them like a second, like really bulky Wish Passer. Not bulky, but like fat HP stat Wish Passer.
Yep.
Really solid. I think the Abomasnow here was very good. I think this is the round where more often than not I found myself going, is this good for the team? But still, I'm big fan of the Farigiraf, big fan of the Abomasnow, and I also quite like the Sandaconda, but that's because it's a pet Pokemon of mine. I can understand that maybe something like Mudstell would have been more impactful in that slot.
And not to say that Sandaconda is terrible. Like it's still a serviceable ground type. It's usable, but it's just not my personal favorite. That's all.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I think my favorite picks this round were actually the 2 electric types in Rotom and Magnezone. I think that they were both very solid picks for when they were picked. George rounding out his team with Rotom and knowing how well he uses it, and with the possibility that Volcarona becomes something like Sneasler later.
Yeah,
I would love to see that trade. I know that I'm saying it a lot. And then
we're like putting it out into the universe as if we know.
Yeah, we're putting pressure on George. Make the trade. Like, just do it. But no, it's fine if he keeps Volcarona as well. I think that he ended up with a pretty solid team considering how the first 5 started and how we were looking at it. I think that it actually ended up pretty solid. The Magnezone I think fits the Sawsbucks team really well as well. So those are probably my 2 favorites for this round. But
okay. Quite nice.
Yeah. Moving back over to the Sawsbucks. I do have to load in the next slide here. Sorry, I did get these relatively recently, guys. So do bear with me. Okay, this pick once again. I think both forms of this Pokemon are not that great, but I actually prefer this one because it has a second stab that hits what Body Press doesn't. So. The Copenhagen Sawsbucks are coming in with the Avalugg. So
the Hisuian Avalugg.
Yeah, the Hisuian Avalugg. That's right. And I know that Ice already hits flying types, which Body Press doesn't. But having the extra rock typing hits stuff like Moltres, right? Stuff like Talonflame, which they have, so that doesn't really matter. And there's no Moltres drafted. So this is kind of all a moot point. But you get where I'm coming from. I do kind of prefer Hisuian Avalugg, just out of a merit of. I think it also has a higher base attack stat than Avalugg, so it can use its offenses a little bit better. Yeah, it has 127 instead of 117, so it's actually a better breaker. Funny enough. Okay. So it's not a terrible pick. Of course, it's a D tier. Like you're not going to get too much value out of these. But it's another copy table. It's another rapid spinner. It's perfectly fine here, I think. I think Lilligant also gets Rapid Spin, if I'm not mistaken. Hisuian.
Yeah, I was just wondering, does this team have removal outside of this thing?
No, it doesn't.
Talonflame gets defog,
Talonflame gets defog, and now they have Rapid Spin on Avalugg as well. So yeah, I think that's fine. I think this is serviceable. Iron Bundle is going to come with boots a lot of the time as well.
Yeah,
which is the main thing that you'd want removal for anyway. And you're doing a lot of the hazard setting as well between Deancey and Quillfish and whatnot, and Lando being such a reliable stealth rocker as well. So I think that this is fine. Just a not so great Rapid Spinner is a perfect way to end off this draft. So this is their full team. This is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And yeah. And
solid team.
Yeah, I think so. I think this is one of the definitely for me. I think top 5, at least top 6, if not top 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's in that power range. I think it looks really solid. It gets well put together.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Chicago Dragapults picking up the water form of the bull. We have Tauros Paldea Aqua, not water. But again, too late for that correction. That's fine. This is really good. They needed this exact speed, which is what I said.
Yes. Yeah. Something in like the 100 range.
Yeah, and the water type as well. They didn't have a water type, did they?
No.
This is perfect. This is perfect.
Yeah. This is like the perfect way to like cap off this draft. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Doubling up on the fighting type doesn't even matter, honestly.
No, not like especially.
The one thing I'm noticing, they don't have a dark type.
Oh, all right. Well, everybody get ready to just play Calm Mind Stored Power against this team.
Yeah, they're going to struggle against Psychic types, especially with the double fighting. I think that's where the double fighting might actually be not so great. Scizor being your, and Scizor and Mesprit being your only true Psychic resists. Scizor no longer getting recovery and Mesprit never having had recovery. This might get a little tough for them. I don't know. Yeah,
I didn't notice that until you said that. This team is very well put together outside of that. And I mean, I guess you can make the argument that maybe like Dragapult is so fast and so oppressive against like opposing Psychic types that Dragapult might be enough to kind of, like at least like fit that role somewhat. But in my experience playing Draft League, when you don't have a dark type, at least one time in the season, you're gonna lose to like Calm Mind Stored Power.
You're gonna get bonked for sure.
Yeah.
It's it's a little rough. And Dragapult is not something that typically wants to switch in on moves. Even
right.
If
Exactly.
Like, 8-2, it doesn't want to. Because it's susceptible to hazard damage, and then you're just super low. You're in range of priority moves. Like it gets bad really fast. So as much as Dragapult is oppressive offensively, it can't switch into the Psychic types, and I think that's where they're going to have the most issues with this team. Other than that, solid team, really good.
Would probably look at dropping something like the Serena for like a budget dark type.
Yeah, one or the other. I think, or even the Hippo. You can't really get rid of the ground type. Is there a ground dark I'm not thinking of? Probably not. Crocodile?
Is that in the decks?
I think it is in the decks. Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
Oh, then yeah, Crocodile would bang on this team.
Yeah, I think Crocodile fits here. I'm not sure if
Crocodile's
it's an A tier. I think it might be a B tier.
Oh well,
it is a B.
Just replace your A tier with a B tier. See, talk to the admins.
Talk to the staff. See if that can be arranged. Yeah.
Crook would bang here because they don't really get a lot of benefit out of the sand otherwise, right? Like the sand doesn't do a ton for them other than just like the chip damage it brings. Crook would actually, bring Intimidate and a dark type to the team is massive. So
no knockoff is a little bit annoying, but it's still fine. I think Crook is still very good this gen. If you need a dark type. And I think it'd be a better ground here than Hippo for sure.
Yeah, agree.
Hard to see that ahead of time as they were auctioning.
Yeah, obviously.
To know that you're going to get Crook or even to think that you can get Crook is a little bit... and you want to secure that ground type. But I don't know if Hippo was necessarily, but it's that's definitely where the weakness lies in their team is the lack of a dark type, and they might struggle. Yeah. But we'll see what they Terra as well, because that might make a difference.
Solid point.
Yeah. Next up is the New York Empoleon, and we're finally going back to Gen 6 and before. But it's fine at this point. I think that GoldoaDragon has made enough picks that are newish Mons, and we have Zangoose as the final pick. And I like Zangoose.
I like it a lot. If you've ever looked at like Toxic Orb, like Toxic Boost facade calcs on this thing, they're good. They're like very strong. And then you get something like the Zangoose that when it's holding a Toxic Orb and has that Toxic Boost proc that has quick attack, this thing can like actually do work. I can see this thing coming, at least like 2, 3, maybe 4 games in a season, just because it can put holes in teams in ways that like other Pokemon can't. And the speed is good for their team here. Like I like it. It's good.
Going back for a second, we said what ground darks are there. There's Tinglu as well, but Tinglu's an S, so that would throw off their entire team. If Tinglu was
Tinglu being an S is wild.
yeah, well, I mean, it is really good. Let's be real.
It is, but
yeah. I think it'd be a little bit overpowered in the A tier, actually, personally. It might be it might be a little bit too much considering what's there. But yeah, getting back to Zangoose, I don't know if Bronson's still in the chat. Bronson, if you are watching, this Mon single-handedly saved a team tournament run that I was a part of, brought us into tiebreakers, and we won the whole thing. So shout outs Zangoose, shout outs Bronson. This thing is very good. I'm just trying to look at his speeds right now. I think they're fine. I don't like that Greninja is like the only truly fast Mon. That's the one problem I think I have with this team. Also the spelling on some of these Mons, I'm now noticing. Foratris. All right, we're gonna have to talk. Is that Ovar Quill as well, or is that Over Quill? It might be Over. I'm not sure.
I think it's Over.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that one's spelled correctly.
Oh no, it's Over. All right. No, we still got a few more slides to go. Sorry, bad joke. But yeah, Zangoose, nice one here. Good priority as well.
Yeah.
You don't want Greninja to be the only priority. Saraledge has Shadow Sneak, of course, and we did mention Decidueye's priority options too, but that's not coming too often. But yeah, Quick Attack is a nice cleanup move because Greninja and Garchomp can often miss out on some KOs. And they'll get like really close, like within the 20% range, and then Zangoose can clean it up. Fortress is spelled correctly, apparently. I'm looking at this on OBS, and it's really far from me, and all the A's look like E's. I apologize. That's just me. So yeah, it's pretty good for the New York Empoleon. I'm not a massive fan of this team composition build, but it could catch us by surprise. It can definitely do some things. We'll just have to wait and see, right? For sure. Moving on to the Atlanta Victinis, this is an interesting one. I don't think this thing is going to come all that often, if I'm honest. We have Glimmet selected as the final pick for the Victinis. The rest of the team is good enough, though. I don't think that this pick even mattered all that much. If Glimmet makes an appearance and happens to get off Toxic Debris or even Corrosion Toxic, because I think it also gets Corrosion, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to look that up while I'm talking. But even just getting up those T-Spikes, just being a suicide lead and letting the rest of the team do what it wants. Right, because there's really good offensive options here. Like a fully offensively geared team could benefit from having this as a lead. But other than that, I don't think it really does anything else. But yeah, it does get Corrosion with Toxic, by the way. So
I think just like slapping a Focus Sash on it and then like setting up a Spike on turn 1 and then getting hit and setting up a Toxic Spike is probably enough for this thing. Like if it does that once during the entire league, it's earned this last spot, right? But I agree with what you said, where I think the rest of the team here is strong enough. But yeah, this team is a team that would certainly benefit from having like a spike, like a single layer of spikes or a single layer of toxic spikes up
occasionally, right? And in matchups where you can go like Specs Torn T, Bandit Urshifu Rapid, Scarf Gardevoir, and then like Skeletors plus Sandy Shocks, and just like go crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, I could definitely see that for sure. Yeah, it's probably a fine last pick. There's not much more to say about it. Like, it's a Glimmet. It's frail as paper, base 48 HP, 42 defense, 60 spit F. It's not doing anything. But next up, now, I don't know if you guys tuned in last week to the GBA fan tournament, but you will know that the last Mon standing was Ice Cube. And it's back, baby. It's back, and it's on Kelly's team. And it's another Mon that benefits from chilly reception. What a pickup here as a final pickup. I think Ice Cube is actually, like, as a makeshift, like, emergency physical check is really good. I think that it's a great low-value Mon. And it literally won our fan tournament last week. So, I don't know if you know how good this thing. It's a lot better in 8mon, like in tournament setting. I think having it as an 8th mon is a lot better. It's a lot easier to prep for, or even just like to cover naturally through your team builds in 11 Pokemon full season leagues. But it's still something you have to think about, which is what I like that from a low tier mon. From a D tier or like a 2-point mon in more classic point driven leagues, what you want out of that Pokemon is something that your opponent has to think about and be like worried about.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, like, you know, it's immune to the first physical attack and it can set up belly drum, right? Like that's something that at a bare minimum has to be respected. So yeah, I can see it. Really good like low value like low tier value here. I see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you haven't seen the fan tournament ending from last week, I recommend you go and check it out. Because it was crazy. That Ice Cube shredded everybody on its way to the to the final victory. But next up, we have a little bit less of a conventional mon and an interesting pick from the Bullet Punch Club. Uzi here, picking up Pyroar. Now, again, I can see the need for a ghost immunity, especially on this team, if you look through it. Because you don't want Meowscarada to have to carry switching into Shadow Balls and like just ghost moves in general. I think that was probably a concern. But I don't know about Pyroar. I guess the speed kind of fits.
Yeah, the speed is nice. It has reasonable, like a reasonable move pull, right? Just like Flamethrower Hyper Voice is
Dark
pretty
Pulse,
good duel.
third.
Pretty good coverage here, and like 2 like reasonably strong stab moves. I don't love it as the only fire type on the team, but that being said, I think it's a fine last pick here.
I don't think fire is that necessary of a type personally.
Sure.
Like, okay, maybe as a fairy and a steel resist, but you have Goldango up at the top, which is probably one of the best steals in the format. It's definitely top 3. And then you also have Clodsire, right, which can take on fairies. So it's like maybe he just wanted the extra steel resist because his team is a little steel weak actually. Although there's not too much spamming like super strong steel moves. It's always good to have just one thing that can be like, oh, well, I can't just spam my steel moves because they have a fire type. If this thing comes, then I can't run the mono steel move, right? So yeah, that's it's not bad. I think again these last few picks here are really going to be just like filler, right? Just stuff in something that can do something 1 or 2 weeks at most.
I think I probably would have liked to have seen like another kind of like niche hazard removal here because like we've got the Avalugg and the Braviary. The Braviary is a great mon, but you always want to use it to be like a breaker, right? Like you don't want to bring it to defog. And the Avalugg, like as we said, is just like kind of mid all around. The Pyroar here is fine. I don't think you're ever gonna like, you know, like Moxie's a cool ability. This thing's physical attacks, that's garbage. Rivalry is an ability.
No, it's not.
That it gets access to, I guess.
No,
I think this thing, like, as kind of like an okay, like hard hitting special attacker that is immune to ghost is fine, but I think you might have gotten more value out of just like some other random niche hazard removal. Like, I don't know what their budget was left at this time, but I know you mentioned Oricorio earlier as like a really solid mon. Does it still get access to defog? Because if so, that seems like Oricorio like doesn't necessarily give you a ghost resist or immunity, but it gives you, especially like in leagues where like all 4 are clumped together in one. Like if you pick one, you get all 4. I don't know if that's the case here. You get a lot of value. Yeah, you get a lot of value out of that, and you get defog. So something like that, I think, would have been really good here.
I think the biggest issue with Oricorio is maybe that it's a C tier, right? But if you're not planning on terastallizing it, then it loses a lot of its like punch, right? Because Quiver Dance is great and all, but not being able to change types on a whim for your Revelation Dance is a little bit
that's
annoying.
A good point.
Yeah, so... But yeah, that's it for the Bullet Punch Club. Nice team. Definitely for me, top 3. I think this team is super scary.
Definitely.
And I fully expect Terra D-Knight. I think we can all see that coming. If it's not D-Knight, then I don't really know where you go. But yeah, we'll see. Next up, we have the Wolverhampton Weaviles with... it's funny how crazy it is that this mon and its other form are so close in stats, so close in move pool, and yet regular Samurott is just so much worse.
It's not good.
It's actually crazy. The ability and Ceaseless Edge and the Dark typing, those three things make Hisuian Samurai so much better.
Right, yeah.
And obviously the small difference in stats also affects it. Like Hisuian Samurot's stronger on the physical side, so it's better at spamming its physical moves, whereas regular Samurott is more mixed. I don't know how I feel about this thing here. They needed a water type, didn't they? Oh, no, they had a water type. They had Walking Wake.
Well, they have Walking Wake, but I mean, I guess you don't want to use Walking Wake as like a bulky water type, but Samurott's also
yeah. Do you want to use
really
Samurott as a bulky water type?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, it's a low tier mon. It gets Sword Stance and Aqua Jet, so there's some there's some value there.
Yeah,
it's a Pokemon.
Yeah, not a big fan of this pick personally. All right, I'm being told that we have one more pick left to go. So we'll stall a little bit. Samurott. It still gets a lot of the tools knockoff, right? Aqua Cutter. Does it get? Yeah, it gets Razor Shell, but it doesn't get Sharpness. That's the big thing. Aqua Jet. I guess they want some priorities. Maybe that it. They didn't want to rely fully on Sucker Punch from Bisharp. I guess that's it.
Right. Yeah, the priority here is nice, and like it's good stab priority that's boostable with Sword Stance, and I think that alone is probably like worth something.
Yeah.
So.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of this team.
I will say like. Yeah, not to harp on it too much. Like, I think there's a lot of power here. I think that, like, one or two free agent moves could make this team, like, really pop. It just needs, like, something fast, and it needs something fast, and I think, like, you gotta drop one of the, like, the booster energy mons, right? Like, there's too many mons here that just have Protosynthesis or Quark Drive.
Yeah.
I think dropping something like that would go a long way here, especially if you could pick up some speed while doing it.
Yeah, something faster than what the team already is, and maybe something with a diverse ability pool, like we've seen with some mons. All right, moving on. We have this pick is interesting. We have Play More Esports picking up Appleton. Already had a dragon. I guess they didn't have a grass type. Are they that scared of grounds? I guess, right? Because that seems like the explanation here. I guess it kind of works. It doesn't have an ability that functions in Sun, right? I'm not missing something.
No, I don't think so. I mean, does it get Harvest?
Wait,
Harvest works in Sun.
It doesn't get Harvest. It gets Ripen. No.
Okay.
Ripen isn't Sun based. Yeah, no.
No.
I don't know. There's something to it.
I think this thing is also like it's relatively bulky, and the fact that thick fat like really shores up that ice weakness a lot. Apple Acid is a fantastic way to like break down things that are otherwise kind of like especially bulky. And it's just like a relatively decent like low tier like Leech Seeder, right?
Yeah.
Like I always like to have access to Leech Seeds on my team because I think it's like a really solid utility option to have. This one comes at like a pretty low price, and it gives you something that hits relatively hard and is relatively bulky. So I can see it.
The team has nice flying resists as well. And bug switch-ins and like Flame Body Heatran and like Torkoal and whatnot. So yeah, maybe it's not too bad. I don't know. Again, it's just something that I can't see coming too often. I mean, that's what you want out of this slot, right? It's something that can come once or twice and it's fine. I haven't personally used it. Don't know if it's great. If it Leech Seeds everything and wins a game on its own somehow, I'll be impressed. That's all I can say. But yeah, that's it for Play More Esports. And then, of course, we move on to the Edmonton Coilers making their final pick. I think that this pick makes sense. They're going to come in with Carbink here. It's just, they didn't need it. They didn't need the fairy, right? They didn't need the rock type, but it's there. It's another hazard option for them. And it's something that can just put up rocks and spikes and get off a Moonblast, get off a body press. It's fine. I think this is this is serviceable for sure.
I mean, like, so a lot of my recent Pokemon experience has been playing like hardcore Nuzlocke, right? Like these like Nuzlocke challenges. And I will say that in those, Carbink is like an S tier encounter because it just doesn't die. In leagues, obviously, it's a little bit different. But I think just having something like a low tier mon here that can set up a rock once in a while, maybe a spike. Maybe does this thing get access to like light screen and reflect? If it does, I think that's also pretty good value. So
yeah, it does. It does. It is known as one of the screeners in like ZU or PU or one of those U's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's good value here for like such a low tier pick. Gives them another fairy to kind of take like a little bit of the burden off Iron Valiant. 'Cause Iron Valiant, you don't really like. You don't want to risk switching into dragon typing too much because it's not the bulkiest.
Yeah.
So if it comes once or twice and sets up some hazards, I think it's done its job. This is a really good bulky offense team though. Like it's very very strong.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing that the final pick is in, and the coaches are rushing to choose their Terramons. A lot of them already know their stuff. But the graphic is also being made for the end of the round, so we're still stalling a little bit here. Someone in chat did mention that this Appleton does look like their logo for Play More Esports, so maybe it's a mascot pick. Thank you, Dax, for that. By the way, hi. It's been a while. And yeah, so that's it for the Coilers. If we just come back to this slide, I love their team. I think that they, again, top 3 team for me. Them and BPC for sure are up there. I'm not sure who the third place is that would join them. Maybe it's the Pulse, but seeing that they don't have a dark type really kind of like made me hesitate.
That one that took the power level down quite a bit for me, like in the rankings.
Yeah, it's
could be very easily fixed, but yeah, that's a hard sell.
Yeah, it's rough. But next up we have the Borussia Donphan. With their final pick, you had mentioned something about lower tier Quiver Dancers and having to respect them, and I think the Venomoth is really a mascot for that.
Yeah, it has been since like Gen 6, right? Like it's been kind of that like you want to pick it up very late, and it's going to get a surprising amount of kills the game it comes because the combination of Quiver Dance and Tinted Lenses is nuts. Like you cannot undersell how good that is in like a Pokemon. So yeah, this is I think this is a strong way to wrap up this draft for sure.
Absolutely. Now let's look at this team. Who do you think the Terramons are? Because I'm leaning Salamence immediately, right? Salamence looks like a no-brainer.
Mint's really solid if you give it like Terra Flying is really solid, and then also whatever like kind of backup Terra you want to have.
I think with A we need a C if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we need a C, which is Volcanion, or I think Tornadus is also a C if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, well Volcanion gets a little bit of extra value by being able to Terra.
True,
I know we talked about how we didn't like it earlier in the draft. We were kind of unanimous in that.
Yeah.
But it does get a little bit of extra value if you can suddenly Terra Volcanion into just like a mono water. I think Volcanion being a mono water like instantly makes it better.
I think it kind of benefits from its fire typing in that it resists fairy, it resists steel.
That's true.
4x. It also, if it turns into a water type with water absorb, it also is no longer a bundle check. Whereas in its normal state, it's a bundle check because of the fire typing, right? So
yeah,
Volcanion has those niche situations where it can actually switch in quite well to specific Pokemon and specific moves because of the fire typing. So you reading D.Rey's message? Is that what's going on?
Yeah.
I see you smiling over there.
Yeah, that's why I'm laughing.
The streets told me there was a Dunsparce and Island Cat disrespect.
Oh
right.
man,
sorry, D.Rey. We had to harp on the Dunsparce and the Persian a little bit. I see you've made your last pick at this point, so yeah, that's good for the Borussia Donphan. The Venomoth's quite nice, and I think that their Terra options are going to be even better with Salamence and Volcanion if that's what they choose to go for. Torn Eye is also an option, but I think you keep it simple. Just keep it Mence Volcanion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And next up should be the well, George is skipped, right? But I don't think are we at George?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So we're actually at the
so
final pick, which is
right,
yet
last
another
pick.
monotype for the San Diego Snugglers. But quite a good one. I'm a big fan of this mon.
Yeah.
Yeah, their final
Big
pick.
fan of Muck.
Yeah, big fan of Mr. Muck. There's also Swalot, which is actually quite interesting this gen. I think that Swalot is actually slightly better than Muck as a poison type this generation, because it gets cool stuff like Stuffed Cheeks, Body Press, Sword Stance with good coverage. It got access to a lot of really good stuff this generation, so it's actually in contention for like being the better of the two low tier poisons.
Blobs, yeah.
Low tier blobs, sure, yeah. But yeah, no, Muck is fantastic. They did need a grounded poison. That was something that they were very heavily requiring here. Did Muck get Toxic Spikes? I don't think so. If you
Unclear. It feels like everything.
It did.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big for it as well. That's another thing that's going to help out Palafin and Annihilate quite a bit, is Toxic Spikes. I think that what D.Rey has done really well here is created a team where you have a core of about 3 to 4 Pokemon that are always coming, which is like Palafin, Annihilate, Jugulus, Rotom. And then the rest of the Mons are all things that can come often. Is what's nice. What a lot of teams don't have. You really have like this gradient of bringable to non-bringable on a lot of the other teams, whereas this team is like top 4 all like super bringable, and then the rest are all like mid bringable, but into specific matchups, which I really like. I think that they made a pretty good team overall, actually. I think that this team fights for a spot in the top with the Pults. Honestly, now that the Pults have that dark type lacking.
I think this team's really solid. I'm not in love with the fact that we don't have a dragon here. I've like gone on record saying that, like, you know, a lot of teams kind of like will strive to get like a Firewater Grass Core, and like the only way to like blanket shut that down is a dragon. So I don't love that we don't have like even a budget one. Like, I think something like Noivern could have really done good here. But I think Noivern, I think, was a B tier, so like pretty costly.
Yeah, but it's rough to get that.
Yeah, but no, I super agree with the analysis here. Like, I think that the Klefki was a super good ad. I think that Persian looks a little awkward on its face, like especially when you already have like a really good dark type in Iron Jugulus. But I think that, you know, the fast parting shot, I think can't be undersold. I think that's like really valuable to go into Annihilate or Palafin or something and just be able to like sit there and either click your setup move or get behind a sub, which is something that I think this team is really going to want to do. So
yeah. All right, so we have the round 11 recap graphic, but not the final teams graphic yet. So we will bring that up. And we'll get to see essentially what is the final teams, but without the Terras here yet. So, yeah, there you have it. These are your final teams. We're just waiting on the graphic to be shown with the with terrestrialization. It should be very shortly here. We're waiting on I'm being told like 2-3 minutes actually. So yeah, this is okay. So we said the Bullet Punch Club definitely top. We had said the Coilers are looking like a top team. I'm thinking those two primarily. I'm leaning toward the Victinis, the Pults, and the Snugglers as kind of the other 3 top teams, and maybe the Sawsbucks as well, fighting for a place here.
So I also really like...
you like Kelly's, right?
I really like Kelly's team. I think Kelly's team is phenomenal. I like what Playmore Esports did for like the first like 75% of the draft. I think some of the later picks were a little odd, but I think that they have enough really, really good pieces that, like, kind of like you said with like the Snugglers, they have like three or four Pokemon that you can basically always bring. Like, I don't think you can always bring Torkoal, but in a lot of matchups, you can probably bring Torkoal to power up this Roaring Moon, and then the Slitherwing can come kind of like sparingly when you think it'll actually be able to do work. So I think that is a really strong piece. But yeah, so if I had to like pick like a top 5, I think I'm going like BPC, Coilers, Torterrapins, Pults, and Snugglers. with like a few being like with like the 4 and 5 slots being kind of contested by like a few of these other teams for sure.
Like Victini's and Play More Esports and stuff, right?
Yeah. The Victini, Play More Esports, and the Sawsbucks. Yeah. I also would like to commend, I don't know the coach's first name, that I think you've been saying it, the Arcaniners. Is that
George?
That's George.
Yeah,
George.
That's SceptileMC.
Yeah. Okay. So I would like to commend them for how they finished their draft.
Yeah.
Because the start, I think, was a little shaky, and I think that the finish was very strong.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Okay, we got it. Hold on. I'm just downloading it. Give me a sec, and we'll be able to see everybody's Terra picks. All right, here we go.
D.Rey in the chat is really going hard trying to defend this Dunsparce.
Yeah, I see that. Oh, man. It's okay, D.Rey. Don't worry about it. Okay, I almost got it here.
It's okay, man.
There we go. All right.
Oh, man.
I have loaded it in. We have now seen the Terra types and the Terramons for the teams. So let's start at the top left. We, of course, have the Sawsbucks. And you had mentioned this yesterday, the choice between Steel and Poison on the Hydreigon, which ends up being the choice here. So they went with Poison. How do you feel about that?
I like it. I think both are super viable. Sometimes I think Poison is a little more cute on its face.
Right.
But I think that there's a lot of benefit to Poison just because if you go Steel, then you're still taking like these fighting type attacks like pretty poorly. Mm-hmm. And this team at one point had a little bit of a fighting type weakness.
Yeah, it did.
I don't think they do so much anymore with like the Slowbro and the Talonflame, and like the Lando Eye, you know.
Right.
But I think that the Poison here definitely makes sense. It also, you know, like, I mean, Steel and Poison both give you the resistance to Fairy, so I guess that's kind of a wash. But, you know, a Poison type with Levitates, pretty solid. So
yeah, although it won't be able to absorb T-Spikes, which is actually something I found to be quite annoying in the past. Because you never want to bring, like, Quillfish and Hydra at the same time, because then you're just like... It's very similar typings already, and then you're turning into a Poison type, which is once again similar typing. So that might create a little bit of a problem, but I'm not sure. And then that's Rock, and I think that's Fighting, if I'm not mistaken, on the Avalugg. I'm just going to zoom into this slide on my own because those are quite small. You guys are probably having trouble seeing it as well. But yeah, it is Rock and Fighting. So, interesting. I actually quite like that for Avalugg. That one makes sense because you want to hit it with what, like ground and fighting moves, right? But having access to body press, you can probably hit stuff harder than they can hit you.
Yeah. So that's actually like the fighting body press actually makes the Avalugg look a lot more compelling.
Yep, absolutely.
Because I did not like it before this, and this is also probably like because they had to pick like a C tier or under, right? So I'm assuming like Talonflame, Quillfish, Deontay, and Avalugg were the only targets. I think Avalugg's probably the one that benefits the most.
Probably, yes. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. Next up, we have the Dragapults choosing Solo Iron Moth, so one of the S tiers. Of course, you can't choose another Terramon if you choose an S tier. But Fire and Grass does make sense for Iron Moth's typing. However, Iron Moth likes to be a lot of typings. It likes to be water, it likes to be fairy, it likes to be... quite a few things, right? Because it gets access to all of those coverage options. It likes to boost them through Terastallization. But the grass typing makes sense because it gets rid of the ground weakness. So if you had to choose one, I would go grass. Now, is there a better Terra combination in this team? Maybe like a Scizor plus something? I don't think so, looking at it, because everything is relatively slow.
Right.
So it's rough. If you could have done Moth plus Scizor, you'd obviously do Moth plus Scizor, but we can't do that. So
I don't know what tier the Tauros sets in, because I could see like an argument for Scizor Tauros. But no, other than that, I don't think so. Maybe the Ursaring even, like Scizor Ursaring, like depending on how hard you want to lean into this Ursaring, like Ursaring, like Terra, like normal Terra Fairy, because I think it gets play rough, could be interesting. But,
Tauros is also B tier, so it wasn't possible.
Okay, See, okay. So yeah, maybe like the Ursaring, but I mean, I think the Serena doesn't benefit enough from it. Like, what would you do? Grass fighting? I don't know.
No idea. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So, Yeah, the Moth probably standalone the best here.
Yep, for sure. And I agree with the option from the Pulse to choose Solo Moth. Moving on, we have the Empoleon. So, like we had said, Ceruledge Lilligant, right? This made sense.
Yeah.
We see
yeah,
the Grass
strong.
and Fire for the Lilligant. It obviously wants to Terra Fire because it wants to hit with Terra Blast. And that's the only way that it can do that. And a Fire-type rocking Giga Drain is usually pretty strong. That's quite good offensive coverage. Now, the Ceruledge is interesting, going Ghost and Fairy. Fairy is not typically a type we see Ceruledge Terra into. Commonly.
It's an interesting choice. It doesn't get any like fairy type coverage.
No.
Like, does it? So you're like locked to, I guess, if you want to hit with fairy, you have to use Terra Blast, which is kind of mid.
Yeah.
But
funny enough, Ceruledge and like Heatran are two of the only mons that benefit greatly from Terra Bug, and I think that might have been a good one to go with.
Yeah, I was gonna say Terra Bug looks like pretty strong here. Fairy, I think, defensively, like, I guess if you're just worried about dark types, then the Fairy makes sense here.
And if you're gonna be constantly tearing into a Fairy type, at least you don't always have to bring the Florges.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a benefit in itself. I guess this is about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll probably stick to like the Terra Ghost most often, right? Like
your
Bitter Blade's already gonna hit pretty hard if you get like one bulk up or one sword stance up. Terra Ghost, Shadow Sneaks though is a really good way to close out a game. So
yeah, and removing your fire weaknesses, right?
Right.
Is also quite good.
Yeah.
No matter which type you Terra into here, really.
Yeah.
Next up, okay, so yeah, it was the Dirge and the Dragalge. So, and you called it right, Terra Dragon and Terra Water, actually. Very nice. And Skeledirge's Terra typings make sense, fire, and, well, because you have to pick a stab, right? Fire is the better stab to pick here. And Fairy is always good on Skeledirge. Always good.
Right.
So... Yeah, no, this...
it's interesting that we just compared two Fire Ghost type Pokemon, and one we're kind of like weirded out that they picked Fairy, and the other one we're like, yeah, this one makes perfect sense.
Yeah, well, it works defensively, right? I guess Ceruledge can be run defensively in some capacity with bulk up and like more of a SpDef spread.
Right.
But Skeledirge is just better at doing it by merit of its natural bulk.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, that's this is great from the Victinis. I think this is the perfect choices here. Torn only ever wants to go electric. Urshifu kind of wants to go like everything, so it's kind of rough. And it's really a toss-up between Skeledirge and Sandy Shocks, right? But I think Dragalge poses enough of an offensive threat with that Terra Dragon Draco Meteor that you mentioned with adaptability that it's worth,
I agree.
It's worth picking Dragalge here.
Yeah, it's just a nuke.
Yeah, and I think that Dirge pairs better with Dragalge as Terra option than Shocks does, personally. All right, moving on to Kelly's are interesting. So Quack plus Electrode didn't pick Bax, which I think is a mistake, personally. I think Baxcalibur's Terra is so free, especially while you're setting up under Hail or Snowscape rather with Slowking's Chilly Reception. You set up a couple of times and then you hit with whatever move you want, basically with Baxcalibur's massive attack stat. I think that Bax is a better Terramon. I don't hate Quaquaval plus Electrode. I think Electrode is a great Terramon.
I was gonna say I think the Electrode here is like kind of the standout. This Electrode goes from like already like a pretty good like C tier pick to like now that's grass ice, right? Like that.
Yeah,
seems very strong.
yeah, it is. The boosted Chloroblast from the grass, that's obviously the typing that you pick here, especially since you chose Electric on Quack, which we'll get to in a second. But Ice makes a lot of sense because it hits the opposing grass types, right? Which are like pretty much the only thing that resist you, or at least aren't neutral. So that's quite nice. What do you think about Electric on Quackable? I like the water, obviously. That makes sense for boosted Aqua Steps, but Electric is strange to me. It's like, okay, you resist flying, but what else is that doing? Oh, it's hitting opposing waters.
Yeah, I was going to say, you resist flying, but you get to like break through opposing waters, which I think Quackable can like have a hard time doing otherwise.
Oh, and actually Baxcalibur and Ursaluna are going to really appreciate that.
Yeah, so I think... I think the backs obviously like would have been very powerful to Terra, but I think this is a really good use of your Terra budget still.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. Depending on how Kelly wants to play this, like I guess the screens with Grimmsnarl is enough of like setup opportunity for Baxcalibur to not need the extra stab, right?
Right.
It can get there on its own just with by merit of ice plus ground plus dragon should be good enough. Yeah, this is solid. I do like this actually. The more I look at it, the more I like it from Kelly. Yeah.
Yeah, I like this team a lot.
All right, and of course we see the flying and normal come out for the Dragonite. Yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
for sure. It's like what else are you gonna do? You're not gonna go dragon here, I don't think. I think that Dragonite benefits from the boosted. What is it? Dual wing beat? Does it still get dual wing beat, or is it just?
I don't. I think it might just get fly.
Honestly,
I don't know if it still gets dual wing beat.
It does not. So it's like hurricane, fly, aerial ace. Aerial ace, I guess, is fine.
Well, I think if you wanted to you probably almost always Terra normal. If you wanted to spam a flying type attack, I think legitimately your best option in this instance is probably just Terra Blast.
If you were planning on never tearing into your stab type, though, I think I would go Dragon.
Probably, yeah,
right?
Because you could at least power up Outrage. So
yeah, I don't know. I think flying's still probably fine. Still. I mean, Uzi's got a crazy good team here. There's
very
nothing
good, very strong.
Nothing we can say about this Terra choice. It's definitely the correct one here. Moving over to the Wolverhampton Weaviles. So Iron Leaves going Psychic as its stab, and Fire. Fire's weird. I don't think I've ever seen Fire on Iron Leaves. Frostmoth, of course, being Ice and Water. This makes sense, as we had mentioned. But Iron Leaves Fire. Okay. What is that doing? I guess Bug. Right?
Bug's
the main
gain a resistance to Bug. You also gain a resistance to Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Offensively, I don't think it does a ton because I can't think of anything off the top of my head that resists Grass, but is also resists Psychic. I guess a Grass Dark type, but
you already have close combat for that, so the Terra Blast
yeah.
Fire isn't really helping. It's really more so for the
Right.
resistances.
Yeah, I think you're doing it for the resistances. If you're gonna
I guess
try to be a defensive setup, and you don't just want to get you turned out, it makes sense.
Yeah, and then once again, Fire again. This time on Roaring Moon. I don't think I've ever seen Fire Roaring Moon.
I've never seen someone not pick Flying.
I've never seen someone be this committed to the Sun strat. Because that's got to be a Sun based thing, right? To pick Fire on Moon. That's okay.
Does it get fire type coverage?
Only on the special side, I believe. It might get Fire Fang, but hold on. Let me check. I know it gets Fire Blast, because I've used that. It does get Fire Fang, but Terra Blast is just infinitely better.
Yeah, I just have a hard time thinking you don't want to. Because I've said this a few times, flying spam, I think, is a legitimate strategy in draft.
Yeah.
You find these spots where teams just have one or two flying resists, and you can just spam these hard-hitting flying type attacks. And acrobatics, I guess you don't want to use booster energy too much because you have the Torkoal. But
yeah, that's where I think that thought comes from, is that you're not going to be able to burn the booster when you want to, so acro is not as useful.
It feels like you don't gain much defensively or offensively by Terra Flying or Terra Fire, though. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's an interesting pick.
Weird. All right, and then we have the Coilers, of course, with Iron Valiant going Fairy and Ghost. So just like Saraledge, but opposite. Ghost kind of makes sense though for the boosted Shadow Ball.
Agree.
Although it already quad resists fighting, so you're not doing anything there. You're not getting any resistances to your usual weaknesses in Fairy and Psychic and Flying and stuff, right?
Right.
So I think it's purely for the Shadow Ball. I guess they're worried about the Goldango matchup, maybe. Probably looking at matchups when choosing this.
Does this thing also get Shadow Sneak? Because powering up Shadow Sneak is pretty valuable too.
I think it does. I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah.
Powering up Shadow Sneak seems like a pretty valuable thing to do
on Swords Dance sets. Yeah, that makes sense. It gets Shadow Claw and Shadow Sneak, So yeah, it can just turn
Yeah.
itself into a pure ghost and spam ghost stabs. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, seeing that they don't have a ghost. Yeah, that's nice. Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that. All right. Pretty good from the Coilers. I personally would have chosen Thundy. I think Thundy is one of the best Terramons in the format. I think the Thunderous is crazy with Choice Scarf, like Terra Flying, can Terra Water. I just think Thundy is so good that you'd want to pick it, but I can understand picking Valiant as well.
Right.
That's fine. Then we have the Donphan with is that okay? That's Terra Flying. What's that next to flying?
Is it ice?
Is that actually no?
Or is it steel?
It's steel. Really, yes, it is steel. It is steel. Sorry. Once again, very small.
Yeah.
I have it blown up as well, and I still can't see what it is.
I don't even have the graphic. Like I'm just watching the stream at this
point.
Man.
Yeah, sorry about that. Hold on. I'll send it to you.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I already sent it to you actually.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad.
Yeah. It's there. Yeah, it's called Final. There we go. Yeah. All right. So
I see.
Yeah. Volcanion as well, and here is water and grass. Okay, grass is cool. Is that hitting?
Yeah,
anything?
Grass makes sense here.
Is that hitting anything that you don't already hit?
No, I think it's just a defensive option, right?
Okay, same as with the steel and the flying. So we have one offensive and one defensive option here on each of these. Okay, that's cool.
I do kind of agree though with your assessment earlier that like maybe Terra Fire makes a little bit more sense because you lose the ability to check any freeze dry mons. I don't know if there are any relevant freeze dry mons outside of Iron Bundle, but you lose the ability to check that with Volcanion now, which is like a little hit. Yeah, it seems like kind of a little not great.
To be fair, I don't think you're ever terastallizing the Volcanion into the bundle matchup. I think you're terroring the Salamence, and most of the time in general, right? If you just look at the Sawsbucks team, you're probably terastallizing the Salamence, but we don't want to give too much away, of course. But yeah, this is fine for Lars. Moving on to the Arcaniners, we have Volcarona with fire and water. This makes sense, right?
Bro, this like strictly gets rid of the like plan to drop Volcarona for Sneasler, which kind of makes me sad.
Well, you can use up your entire FA budget if you want to switch your Terra over to like Garg plus something. That is possible. Although he can't do Alecki, so he'd be locked on like what, Tink? I guess it would be Garg and Tink, which doesn't seem that great either. So maybe we just keep the Volcarona, man. I'm starting to think we just keep the Volk.
You just rock out with the Volcarona.
George will make it work. He drafted all three beasts once. He drafted Suicune, Raikou, and Entei, and he made it work. So George is crazy. We'll see if he can do it again. And finally, we have the Snugglers. As we expected, it is the Annihilate, and it's going to be Ghost plus Fairy. If you're wondering why Ghost, once again, all of these Pokemon have to Terra at least into one of their stabs at all times. So
I think this one makes a lot of sense. Like I've played with Annihilate in draft formats recently, and it's not nearly as potent if you can't Terra into like a more defensive typing. Like it is still very, very strong. Don't get me wrong, but being able to Terra Fairy or just like something that is resistant is big game here. So
yeah. By the way, George, when I say George is crazy, I just saw your comment in chat. I mean crazy in a good way, like crazy good. I don't mean like you make no sense, because you definitely make sense. Sorry about that. You're a very good player, and we're always super impressed with what you can do. But yeah, no, the Snugglers, I mean, yeah, what more is there to say? The team now definitely does make sense. Everything kind of lines up. Even the Arcanine and the Jugulis look good on there. I'm starting to really like this team the more I look at it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it seems like we're definitely rooting for two of the strongest teams, I would say, with the Coilers and the Snugglers. I'm also rooting for Uzi. I'm rooting for everybody, really, because everybody did a pretty good job here. There's only like one or two drafts where I'm like kind of iffy on if they're even going to work, but I might get proven wrong, and they might be champions by the time we're done here. So
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, there you have it. Sorry, go ahead.
Here, I was gonna say, here's to a great season and nobody going 0-3 drop.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna have drops necessarily. We have the assistant coaches to help with that, right?
Yeah, I know.
So that's nice. But yeah, hi again, guys. It's our faces. What's up? That's it. That's it for the draft. We completed the auction portion. We completed the snake portion, and those are your 12 teams that will be going head to head in GBA Season 10. And I believe our battles start in 2 weeks. We are just 2 weeks away from games starting, if I'm not mistaken. And you can correct me in chat. I see the GBA channel is correcting me every time I make a mistake, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we start in 2 weeks' time, 2 Mondays from now. Which I think is the 30th or the 31st. 31st would be the first week of the GBA. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm super excited. I'm going to be watching through all of these games. I might even stream little watch parties on my channel if you guys want to come over. You guys see
watch parties.
my channel link right there below my my beautiful face. Or you might think I'm hideous. Up to you. Yeah, that should be accurate. Yes. So week 1 of the GBA does start on the 31st of July. So I hope you all are ready for it. We got some very interesting teams and a brand new format and brand new rule set as well for how teams make it into playoffs. So be looking out for that. That should be fun. Thank you guys for having us. We really appreciate all the support. Thanks for coming through and watching the streams. And thank you to Vivid for being a wonderful co-host through these 2 streams. This was a great experience, and I'd love to do it again if you'll have me. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was a ton of fun. I just want to say, like, shout out to Jolt for putting everything together and inviting me to do this. And also just a massive shout out to Aster over there, because I don't know if you know, but he did so many things live that it's mind-boggling, especially since he says he's never streamed. I don't even know if I believe that anymore. But yeah,
I haven't, I swear. These are my first 2 streams.
A lot of juggling acts going on, especially with yesterday. So yeah, crazy. Big ups.
Absolutely. But yeah, thank you guys for helping me out and being here and just watching and just supporting the GBA. Honestly, this is a league that I hold a lot of love for. So I appreciate you guys so much. And that's it for us. Thank you for being here, and we'll catch you on the flip side. See you, GBA fans.
Yeah, get ready.